Chapter 1427. Everyone had a weakness. 1427. Everyone had a weakness. A leopard could not change its spots. So quickly, almost 100 years had passed, but Lin Yuqi had not changed in the slightest. In the case of a heavenly body tier, this little bit of time might not be as short as the blink of an eye, but it was equivalent to a few days' time of an ordinary person at most. Don't misunderstand. I only came to check if Han Xinyan has successfully refined the Berserk Blood Spirit Pill, and will leave immediately after. Ling Han had no desire to trifle with this very alluring woman. Lin Yuqi did not even raise her head. You are in such a rush. Could it be that you are heading to the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy? She knew even about that? Ling Han was slightly surprised. Though this woman could also be termed a prodigy of martial arts, she was still extremely far off from the level of king tiers. She definitely would not be able to enter into the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. So how had she known about the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy and had guessed correctly on her first attempt? Hee, just look at how concerned I am about you. Yet you only came to visit me after so many years. Lin Yuqi pretended to be aggrieved. No, I demand you accompany me today. Less chatter. Is Han Xinyan here? Ling Han asked in irritation. This woman had to tease him every time. If he did sleep with her one day, and then completely turned his back on her heartlessly, he would really want to see what her expression would be like. Of course, that was just saying it. Ling Han could never be that heartless, so he would rather not trifle with her. However, he would also be displeased if he kept being teased. Yo, you're throwing a temper tantrum with me. Why not? Allow big sister to dote on you tonight and let you vent some anger? Lin Yuqi stood up, and with a single motion, she arrived in front of Ling Han. As a heavenly body tier elite, her speed was naturally fast. Pa! A hand gripped her slender wrist. Lin Yuqi was shocked. At first, she thought it was Ling Han, but this hand holding onto her obviously had delicate skin, and she could tell with a glance that this was a woman as well. Thus, she did not struggle. In any case, she did not lose anything, though her heart did skip a beat. How could this woman standing beside Ling Han be so powerful? She looked at the other, and her small mouth suddenly gaped widely. Heavens, how could there possibly be such a beautiful woman? Even she could feel her spirit shaken just by seeing her. She was almost drooling. Why was it like this? She was a woman herself, and furthermore was herself incredibly beautiful. She could die from admiring her own beauty in the mirror. So how could she possibly stare besottedly at another woman? She had a feeling that as long as this woman spoke up, she would complete whatever task she was given as best as she could, no matter how harsh the task was. With this thought, she paled in shock. What kind of charm was that? Furthermore, if even a woman like herself would be like this, then what about men? They would all be worshipping her and kneel on the ground just for the sake of catching a glimpse of her toes. Ling Han snickered internally. This great vixen exuded her allure no matter the situation. Could it be that she didn't know that this person by her side was Empress Luanxing? Her charm had no equal, and there had been emperors willing to surrender their empires for her sake. The great turmoil previously had directly led to the destruction of two great majestic empires, and the cause had been Ding Lian's manic longing, which was proof of this person's charms. Were you showing off? Oh, you want to sleep with my husband? Empress Luanxing asked calmly. This? Though Lin Yuqi had a glib tongue, in the face of Empress Luanxing, she was as uncomfortable as a young girl that had first stepped into romantic affairs. That was how shy she was. She was practically dying from the awkwardness. She was teasing Ling Han, and actually met with the latter's actual wife. This could really be considered as throwing herself onto the spear's end. All right then, you shall be serving him in bed tonight, Empress Luanxing declared unexpectedly. From today onwards, you will be a member of our Ling clan, and shall address me as big sister in future. Miss, I was just joking. Lin Yuqi got a scare. Asking her for bed service tonight itself? She was still a virgin. Empress Luanxing revealed a sliver of dignity, and seriously uttered, "Call me big sister." Fuck, are you being serious? Lin Yuqi had originally thought that she was enough of an annoying troublemaker herself, but she had immediately paled in comparison when compared to this lady. The latter practically wanted to force her into prostitution. She hurriedly surged her origin power, wanting to struggle free, yet shockingly discovered that while this hand holding onto her wrist might be as beautiful as jade, and was practically like the most delicate work of art, it did not move in the slightest. So powerful. She hurriedly exerted some effort, but Empress Luan Xing seemed as if she had not even sensed anything, and was still shockingly calm. The gap in power was really too big. Ling Han shook his head on the sidelines. Empress Luan Xing had cultivated to the pinnacle level, and had furthermore reached the peak stage. Added with the fact that the Nine-Snake tribe were prodigies of the ancient times, and she had come from the celestial realm and possessed unfathomable means, she was truly powerful. It was just like with the Ding clan that Ding Zizhen was from. Almost everyone knew how to use Tide of the Ages. The only difference was that some would be stronger, and some would be weaker. How terrifying a secret technique was that? Even if their cultivation level was completely the same, it would be very difficult for Ling Han to defeat Empress Luan Xing. He would need to depend on the indestructible Heaven Scroll for defense, and finally expend himself to emerge victorious. So how could Lin Yuqi possibly be a match for her? Big sister. Lin Yuqi immediately grinned, her expression filled with obeisance. She finally knew that her inferiority to Empress Luan Xing was not only in terms of looks, bearing, and figure. With her personality, she was naturally the type to be flexible. For a man to avenge himself, even 3 years would not be too late, and she was a vengeful woman, so she would get her vengeance in 3 days. When Empress Luan Xing was no longer here, just see how she would tease Ling Han to tears. "I was just joking. Please don't take it to heart, big sister," she said humbly, her eyes soft. Yet Empress Luan Xing did not take it seriously at all, and said, "Joking? So you were just fooling around with me? You're not playing by the rules." The charming smile on Lin Yuqi's face immediately disappeared. Killing a person would only take a moment, and she had surrendered, so you could concede a bit too. Why keep picking on this matter? Her lip twitched, and she said, "How could I dare to fool you, big sister?" Honestly, she had never been so aggrieved. In the past, who had not accommodated her when they saw her incomparable beauty and shocking natural talent in martial arts. Yet, Empress Luan Xing's expression was still serious. "I never joke around. Since you have fooled me, you have to pay the price. Your punishment will be to service my husband in bed tonight." Fuck. Lin Yuqi almost spat out a mouthful of blood. So no matter what, she was insisting that she would be providing bed service? She had only been joking around. So why had it given her an opening to take her words seriously? She laughed drily. "Big sister, you must be kidding." Humph. Empress Luan Xing looked serious. With Lin Yuqi's hand in her grasp, she gave a light tremor, and an overbearing origin power suddenly surged into Lin Yuqi's body along with her own martial intent, sealing off Lin Yuqi's cultivation level in an instant. This was completely one-sided, and Lin Yuqi was completely incapable of resisting. What? Lin Yuqi paled in shock. Her cultivation level had been sealed, and she was now a normal person. What if she would really be undressed completely and thrown onto Ling Han's bed naked? What was she to do? Would she really be dishonored by this little rascal? Hey, don't let your imagination run wild. I do not accept such slander." Ling Han hurriedly exclaimed. He could tell what she was thinking about just by looking at Lin Yuqi's face that had paled in fear. "Big sister, I am really sorry," Lin Yuqi exclaimed to Empress Luan Xing, crying. "Do you really know your mistake now?" Empress Luan Xing asked calmly as if completely indifferent. "Yes," Lin Yuqi mumbled softly. She had really gained some healthy fear from being sorted out. Chapter 1428, Change. Chapter 1428, Change. Lin Yuqi was a cordial person, yet there was a slight kink in her personality. That was, she liked to tease people. This was especially the case with naive and innocent youngsters, whom she would tease until they became red-faced with embarrassment. She derived great joy from their awkwardness. Now, however, she was almost frightened to death. Although she had already recovered her cultivation and returned to her position on the chair, she still had yet to calm her frightened self. She had a feeling that this woman hadn't simply been joking. If she hadn't admitted defeat, this woman would have genuinely carried through with her threat. It was due to this feeling of a genuine threat hanging over her that she chose to respect yet distance herself from Empress Luan Xing. In fact, she felt a sense of fear toward her. Ling Han laughed loudly in his mind. Why was Empress Luan Xing the ruler of his harem? Just look at her demeanor. He couldn't help but feel smug. Has Han Xinyan succeeded in refining the Berserk Blood Spirit Pill yet? Yes, she succeeded, Lin Yuqi said in a deflated voice. She would only feel invigorated and spirited when teasing others. Now that an untouchable prey was sitting before her, how could she not feel stifled? Ling Han nodded and said, "That's good to hear. I'll take my leave then." "Oh, that's right. Why did you mention the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy just then? Why don't you pop your head out to see? Who isn't discussing this matter right now?" Lin Yuqi was showing signs of returning to her previous self. However, after stealing a glance at Empress Luan Xing, she immediately felt a chill in her heart. She hurriedly reined herself in, continuing, "In the past, it's always been one of the Star Sand Saints' 9 disciples recruiting disciples. This time, however, all 9 of them will be recruiting disciples. Thus, which young king tier isn't rubbing their hands in eager anticipation?" "Oh." Ling Han was slightly surprised. Didn't this mean that there would be more available spots? Lin Yuqi raised 9 fingers and said, "In the past, there were only 100 available spots in each recruitment cycle. This time, however, there are a whopping 900 available spots. Moreover, it's rumored that the most talented among these 900 new disciples will be taken as a personal disciple of the Star Sand Saint, guaranteeing their path to become a saint in the future. Who can resist this kind of temptation?" Indeed, even the North Emperor and Stone Emperor wouldn't dare to beat their chests and claim that they could definitely become saints in the future. After all, taking this step was far too difficult. However, if one became the disciple of the Star Sand Saint, then becoming a saint in the future would be guaranteed. This was because of the Star Sand Saint's keen eye for talent. However, the cruel matter of fact was that only one of the 900 prodigies who entered the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy would eventually become a saint. The others would all become stepping stones for this one fortunate prodigy. This was a true battle between prodigies. Once one failed, they would have essentially kissed goodbye to their chances of becoming a saint. This was because this battle pertained to the fight over fortune and Tao. As the saying went, the success of one prodigy would be built on the failure of 10,000 others. Similarly, saints would also be treading upon the despair of other prodigies as they ascended to the pinnacle of success. The success of the 9 saints was but a repetition of this cruel truth. Among the 99 disciples who had entered the academy alongside them at each time, none had succeeded in becoming a saint, regardless of how prodigious they were. They could only remain trapped at the peak stage of the consummate level of the eternal river tier forever. For example, the Crimson Flame Emperor had also been a supreme prodigy back in his days, even referred to as the most talented prodigy on Cloud Apex planet in the past 1 billion years. Moreover, he had also had the fortune of entering the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. However, he had lost to the prodigy who was now the 9th saint. Even so, he had continued to strive to become a saint, though he experienced nothing but failure and rejection. Yet, even with this knowledge, the young king tiers still flocked to the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. First of all, they would at least have a chance of becoming that one fortunate prodigy. If they became a saint, they would then be the most powerful being in the world, someone who could truly grasp their own destiny and fate. Secondly, even if they couldn't become a saint, they would still develop a battle prowess that was unparalleled among their cultivation level, just as the Crimson Flame Emperor had. Becoming the most powerful cultivator under the tier of saint was also a seemingly acceptable outcome. Is it true that only 1 out of the 900 prodigies can become a saint? Ling Han didn't believe this curse. Not only was he going to become a saint, but those beside him were also going to become saints as well. "All right, I understand. Then I'll take my leave now." Ling Han stood up to leave. Then Brothum, we'll meet again at the Star-Sand Martial Arts Academy. Lin Yuqi wanted to act seductively again, yet she immediately became serious upon seeing that Empress Luan Xing was still beside them. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Huh? You're also going? Even if there were far more available spots than before, it still wasn't a case that anyone could enter the academy. Heh, I'm a scout. I need to test the waters of the Myriad Directions Galaxy to determine whether or not we can expand our Treasure Forest Pavilion there, Lin Yuqi said. So that's how it is. Ling Han, don't be too careless, Lin Yuqi warned. Rumors are flying, saying that the Star-Sand Saint is already nearing the end of his life. This time, he might be searching for someone to pass his inheritance on to. Thus, the competition will surely be tremendously intense. You've definitely got to squeeze yourself into the top 900. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, I'll keep that in mind. Lin Yuqi didn't say anything else. Anyhow, they might meet again at the Star-Sand Martial Arts Academy. More importantly, she was afraid of Empress Luan Xing. Husband, we're not going to take her along with us? Empress Luan Xing asked. We can have a new face attending to you at night. Pa. Lin Yuqi was so startled that she fell back down onto her chair. A smile stretched across Empress Luan Xing's face. Did they think that she couldn't play jokes? Ha ha ha. Ling Han wrapped his arm around Empress Luan Xing's slender waist as he casually took his leave. Wife, why don't you attend to me tonight? He whispered in Empress Luan Xing's ears. Although Empress Luan Xing had already started to call him husband, the two of them still hadn't experienced any intimate contact yet. Thus, there was always an itch in Ling Han's mind. Empress Luan Xing glanced at him and said, I still have yet to cultivate my 9 snakes' mystical power to the pinnacle level, so I must retain my purity. However, if you insist. Her eyes were watery and full of love. Ling Han's heart fluttered, and he involuntarily gripped her slender waist even tighter. Although this empress was proud, she would be gentler than anyone when she expressed her love for him. However, the more she was so, the more he would cherish her. He pecked the empress' soft lips, saying, It's better that we wait then. I don't want to sabotage your path to the pinnacle level. Empress Luan Xing nodded and said, I know. Ling Han enjoyed this kind of seemingly mundane relationship with the empress. Even though it seemed dull, who could say that there weren't strong feelings of love between them? At that time, Empress Luan Xing had even dared to oppose the venerable Trinity to stand up for him. Meanwhile, Ling Han was willing to become enemies with the two majestic empires for her. Love didn't need to be incessantly spoken. Ling Han couldn't help but ask, So, when can you cultivate to the pinnacle level then? Empress Luan Xing involuntarily chuckled. This man sure was perverted. She pondered for a moment before answering, Not before I reach the Genesis tier. Ling Han nodded in understanding. No wonder she had previously required him to reach the Genesis tier before agreeing to marry him. This wasn't because she had incredibly high standards, but because it was necessary. That was the Genesis tier. It would take them at least several hundred years to reach. Ling Han immediately became mopey. Him loving Empress Luan Xing was one matter, and him wanting to make love with her was another matter. From a certain perspective, when a man loved a woman, wasn't he wanting to make love with her forever? I want it too, Empress Luan Xing whispered into his ear. Howl. Ling Han almost howled like a wolf. Who said that the Empress couldn't say seductive things? He truly wanted to push her over and make love with her now. However, he clearly couldn't do this, so he could only forcefully suppress his urges. We'll have Heavenly Phoenix attend to you tonight, the Empress suddenly said. She was truly the best wife in the world. How understanding. Because he hadn't married and made love with Empress Luan Xing yet, he felt too guilty to secretly make love with the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. He couldn't leave her as a widow any longer. After all, he was alive and kicking. Chapter 1429 would figure plain. Chapter 1429 would figure plain. It was a pity that they had to set off straight away, meaning that Ling Han didn't have the opportunity to have the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden attend to him tonight. The cloud-piercing shuttle began another lengthy journey, only arriving at the myriad directions galaxy after one entire year. It then flew toward Woodfigure Planet. The Star-San Martial Arts Academy was located on none other than Woodfigure Planet. This was an open planet that didn't have any planet protection formation. This made it appear extremely generous and open. However, this was also a very dangerous decision. If a starship suddenly launched a sneak attack, the planet wouldn't have any way of defending against it. However, no one was worried about this problem. What a joke. The Star-San Martial Arts Academy was located on this planet, and inside this academy were 10 Genesis tier saints. 10 saints. What kind of concept was this? Generally speaking, it would be a great miracle if a galaxy could produce a saint. For example, the Long Light Galaxy didn't even have a single saint, with Eternal River tier elites being the rulers of that galaxy. From this, it could be seen just how rare Genesis tier saints were. Here, however, there were a whopping 10 saints on a single planet. Wasn't this simply incredible? Who dared to attack this planet? Who would be retarded enough to attack this planet? With saints guarding the planet, what need was there for a planet-protecting formation? That would be a waste of true origin stones. The cloud-piercing shuttle started to descend. However, its descent was extremely hard to control, and Ling Han didn't have a target landing destination either. Thus, he didn't pay much attention and directly landed wherever. Everyone left the Black Tower, only to see that this was an expanse of marshlands. Gray mist suffused the surroundings, significantly limiting how far they could see. Such rich spiritual chi. The richer the spiritual chi, the more and faster true origin stones are formed. At the same time, the overall level of cultivation will also be higher, the Notionless Saint said. After reaching the heavenly body tier, even his speed of cultivation had slowed down. He could no longer advance rapidly simply through cultivation. Thus, he also exited the Black Tower. Moreover, this could also prevent him from being tossed out of the Black Tower and used as Ling Han's shield. As expected of a place that can produce saints, everyone exclaimed. They had been to Cloud Apex Planet before, and they had already thought that the spiritual chi there was very rich. However, only after arriving here did they realize that there were always places more impressive than the previous. Moreover, this was only a mere marshland, and not a holy land for cultivation. If they traveled to those famous mountains and valleys, they would definitely find mines of true origin stones and unbelievably rich spiritual chi. They continued forward. Although those below the heavenly body tier couldn't fly, who didn't know how to tread over water, they all traversed across the marshland, not causing a single splash in the water below. Boom! A gigantic figure suddenly burst from the water, biting at Ling Han and the others. This was a gigantic crimson alligator. However, it had a single bull horn as well as 4 wolf-like legs, making it appear incredibly strange. Little Ching chirped before immediately swooping down and grabbing the gigantic alligator with its claws. It transformed into its original shape, its wingspan reaching 3,000 meters at full stretch. It was even larger than the gigantic alligator. The alligator was only at the Shattering Void tier, so how could it withstand the power of Little Ching? Its bones were immediately crushed, and it was as dead as could be. Even some random alligator dares to ambush us. It's truly seeking death. But the environment here is far too suitable for cultivation. The first demonic beast that we came across was already at the Shattering Void tier. This is a clear sign of how dangerous this place is. Although we're all very powerful, it's best that we remain alert and careful. Shio. Right at this moment, a streak of light suddenly flashed before them, shooting at the soaring Little Ching. Little Ching's wingspan measured over 3,000 meters in length right now, so it was naturally far too big a target. Ling Han saw the streak of light clearly. That was an arrow. He immediately snapped his fingers, activating the lightning sword technique. His attack reached the arrow even though he had unleashed it later. Pa! The arrow instantly shattered into pieces. In terms of attack speed, it was very likely that no one at the same cultivation level, same major tier could compare to Ling Han. In terms of might, the lightning sword technique was also incredibly powerful, especially since it had been imbued with heaven's might. Fury involuntarily spread across Ling Han's face. They hadn't provoked anyone, yet someone had suddenly fired an arrow at them. What was the meaning of this? However, before they could even seek out the assailant to question them, they saw a man fly over, anger on his face. Behind him were two elders. These elders were clearly his servants. "Who's sabotaging my hunting?" the man asked, haughtiness on his face. "Hunting? He's treating little Qing as an ordinary demonic beast?" Ling Han humphed in displeasure. He was a protective person, and he had just seen little Qing being randomly targeted by a stranger, so how could he not be furious? "This is my beast pet, yet it was almost wounded by you. How are you going to compensate me?" he asked balefully. "Compensate you?" The man involuntarily chuckled upon hearing this. At this moment, his two servants finally caught up to him. However, they didn't so much as glance at Ling Han and the others, merely standing behind the man respectfully. What a hilarious joke. Someone actually dares to ask me, Lu Shiyuan, to compensate them? "You're not going to compensate me? That's fine by me," Ling Han said with a nod. Just when Lu Shiyuan thought that he was bowing his head, Ling Han continued, "I'll also fire an arrow at you. That way, we'll be even." Lu Shiyuan faltered for a moment before fury completely overtook him. Are you seeking death? Ever since his brother had become a king tier, who had ever dared to speak to him like this? "Apologize or eat my arrow," Ling Han said calmly. There was firm determination in his voice. "Impudence." The two elders leaped forward, saying, "How dare you speak to young master like that? Immediately kneel down and accept your death." Lu Shiyuan crossed his arms before his chest with a sneer, asking, "Do you know who I am?" "Pooh." Almost everyone beside Ling Han laughed out loud upon hearing this. This was the standard question asked by every descendant of someone rich or powerful. "Why you people?" Lu Shiyuan became even more enraged. What kind of attitude was this? How audacious! The two elders immediately charged over, unleashing their might without any restraint. Ding Ping immediately stepped forward. Not willing to be beaten, Jiuyao also followed immediately after him. Pong pong. The two of them each threw a punch, and the two elders were instantly sent flying backward, blood spraying from their nose and mouth. Pa, pa. The elders collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain and unable to pick themselves back up. This, Lu Shiyuan was instantly drained of his courage. Although these two elders were his servants, they were, in fact, even more powerful than him. In any case, he was merely borrowing the power of his clan, especially his older brother, to act wantonly. Moreover, it was only because of his clan and his older brother that he had the right to command these two servants who were at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. Yet, they were actually defeated by those two young men in a single exchange. Don't act rashly," Lu Shiyuan stammered as he saw Ding Ping and Jiuyao walking over. He hurriedly scuttered back in retreat, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. He hadn't imagined that he would cause such huge trouble simply by coming here to hunt and pass time. Ling Han couldn't be bothered speaking any more nonsense either, directly activating the annihilating Dragon Star arrow. Shio! There was a flash of golden light, and the arrow had already arrived before Lu Shiyuan's left shoulder. Pa! His entire left arm exploded into oblivion. Blood splattered into the surroundings. This was truly a bloody sight. Of course, this was already the result of Ling Han showing mercy. Otherwise, how could a measly cultivator at the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier survive his attack? You! Lu Shiyuan was experiencing such agony that streaks of tear and snot were flowing down his face. "My older brother is Lu Juntian. Since you've dared to treat me like this, my older brother definitely won't forgive you." Scram! Ling Han waved his hand, uninterested to learn more about Lu Juntian. If this person appeared before him, he would happily engage him in battle. Chapter 1430, At the Foot of the Purple Wind Mountain. Chapter 1430, At the Foot of the Purple Wind Mountain. "Fortunately, my little Qing is uninjured," Zhang Qiaoling said unhappily. "Otherwise, I would have severed your dog head. She had very good relationships with the old ginseng, the rabbit, little Ching, and rock spirit, all the non-humans. Right now, she was sitting on little Ching's body and stroking its scales and feathers. Everyone chuckled upon hearing this. Jiang Qiaoling was mischievous and lively, not gentle and obedient like Ding Ji. However, she was a joy to have around. Which of her seniors didn't like and spoil her? This was also the reason why she dared to make trouble. Let's go. Everyone continued forward. Although this marshland wasn't small, how quick was everyone's speed? It took them just a few hours to leave the marshlands behind them. A large city appeared on the horizon before them. After entering the city, they had two main things to do. The first was to rest up, and the second was to gather information. After all, they had to figure out the location of the Star-San Martial Arts Academy first. No. This was an ancient city that had existed for heaven knew how many years. Without even entering the city, they could already sense its aura of age and history. Upon entering it, this sensation became even clearer. Each tile and each stone exuded a sense of history. The best place to gather information was naturally the tavern. As such, they all found a tavern to enter, not asking for a private room and simply sitting in the main room. As they ate, they listened to the conversations around them. Sure enough, they were able to rapidly develop an understanding of this unfamiliar world. Oi, 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 have you guys heard? Seventh young master of the Bailao clan just married the darling daughter of the leader of the Stone Hill faction half a month ago. Pooh, no way. Isn't seventh young master of the Bailao clan referred to as a handsome man who only appears once every 10,000 years? Meanwhile, it's rumored that the darling daughter of the leader of the Stone Hill faction is not only tremendously ugly, but also extremely violent and uncouth in nature. This is like planting a pretty flower into air. Anyhow, it's spoiling a good man. Heh, what could the Bailao clan do about this? They're under pressure from their mortal enemies, the Liu clan, so they had no option but to unite by marriage with the Stone Hill faction. The Liu clan, huh? They produced a prodigy. He's truly a prodigy. It's rumored that he received a word of praise from the Dipankara saint 7,000 years ago. What? The Star-San saint's seventh disciple, the Dipankara saint, has personally praised him before? Or else, Lu Juntian only advanced to the mountain river tier 7,000 years ago. Now, however, he's already reached the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. According to hearsay, he's not far from advancing to the high extreme either. This kind of cultivation speed is truly terrifying. He's definitely going to be accepted into the Star-San Martial Arts Academy this time. To say nothing else, at least the Dipankara saint is impressed with him. This time, all 9 of the saints are recruiting disciples together. Thus, him entering the Star-San Martial Arts Academy is a foregone conclusion. To say nothing of becoming a saint, he can at least become an Eternal River Tier elite. That's the Eternal River Tier. TSK, TSK, TSK. Everyone spoke with spirit and wonderment. Even on a planet like this, where there were 10 saints, those at the Eternal River Tier could still be referred to as elites. After all, only a rare few cultivators could reach this tier. Anyhow, both the Liu clan and Bailao clan were heavenly body tier forces. However, because the Liu clan had produced a prodigy in Lu Juntian, this had heaped a ton of pressure onto the Bailao clan. After all, these clans were mortal enemies, and the Liu clan was showing signs of surpassing them in the near future. As such, the Bailao clan had hurriedly gone out to search for allies. The Stone Hill faction was an Eternal River Tier force. Although they only had one such elite, this elite having retired from public view, no less an elite at the Eternal River Tier was still an elite at the Eternal River Tier, after all. This was enough to suppress the Liu clan. Ling Han and the others exchanged a glance, all slightly astonished. This was far too coincidental. They had just come across Lu Juentian's brother, and they were now hearing about him from the conversation of others. Moreover, they learned that he was indeed a young king tier, and had even received praise from a saint in the past. It went without saying that he was supremely talented. However, which of them wasn't a king tier? As such, What did it matter that Lu Juntian was a king tier? Would they be afraid of him? Say, it seems like Lu Juntian went to the Purple Wind Mountain. Why did he go there? Don't you know? Many young king tiers have arrived recently, and they've all agreed to taste tea and discuss Dao at the Purple Wind Mountain. This gathering is taking place these few days, and everyone is treating it as an honor to catch a glimpse of this gathering. What's so impressive about that? Isn't traveling there to catch a glimpse simple? Haha, old brother, it's not as simple as you think. Indeed, not to mention the powerful followers of these king tiers guarding the foot of the mountain, preventing those under the level of king tier from ascending. Even the Purple Wind Mountain itself is a peculiar creation of heaven and earth. Only a handful of heavenly body tier elites can succeed in reaching the peak of the Purple Wind Mountain. Really? There are such peculiarities? Brother, you've definitely come from somewhere else. Otherwise, if you're from here, there's no way you wouldn't have heard about the famous Purple Wind Mountain before. Sigh, does that mean that I don't even have the right to witness their battles? I've only just reached the mountain river tier, so I'm afraid that I can't even reach the foot of the Purple Wind Mountain. They all sighed in disappointment. However, their conversation quickly took a turn, and they started to discuss their experiences in brothels, comparing which girls were more skilled. They were men, after all, so their topics of discussion would naturally revolve around power, conflict, and women. Looks of displeasure spread across the females' faces, so Ling Han took this opportunity to say, "Why don't we check out this Purple Wind Mountain?" Yeah. Jiang Xiaoling couldn't be happier, and she immediately shouted in agreement. It's a good opportunity to meet the king tiers from this place, the Rain Emperor said, a strong fighting spirit exuding from his body. Not only was he eager for battle, but Ding Ping, Jiu Yao, Su Ran, and the others were all eager for battle. Let's go. They paid their bill before asking a random man for the location of the Purple Wind Mountain. This mountain was extremely famous, so at least 9 out of 10 people would know of its location. The Purple Wind Mountain wasn't far from this place, so they decided to head over there as quickly as possible. As such, those who were weaker all entered the Black Tower. In just a few hours, a lone peak appeared before them. There was nothing strange about this peak, yet the winds that howled through this area were incredibly strange. All of them were purple in color. Purple Wind Mountain, it was certainly true to its name. Right now, there was already a sea of people at the foot of the Purple Wind Mountain, all of them raising their heads as they gazed at the peak of the mountain. Meanwhile, there were also several hundred people hovering in the sky. Some of them were at the heavenly body tier, while some of them weren't. Regarding the latter, these were half-humans who had wings on their backs. It was clear that this gathering of prodigies was an extremely attractive event. Even heavenly body tier elites hurried over to catch a glimpse. How lively, Ling Han said with a chuckle. Fourth brother, let's go. Let's go to the mountain peak and battle to our heart's content, the Rain Emperor said boldly. Ling Han couldn't help but say, second brother, the king tiers are there to taste tea and discuss Dao. Exactly. So they're there to taste tea and battle, no? The Rain Emperor replied. Fine. Second brother is becoming more and more battle-thirsty. Ling Han turned to Ding Ping and the others and said, you guys wait here. Only heavenly body tier elites could ascend this mountain, and these elites had to be king tiers among the heavenly body tier, no less. Although Ding Ping and the others had reached the pinnacle level, they still had yet to reach the heavenly body tier. Thus, they were far from qualified enough to ascend this mountain. Su Ran also told his wife to wait here for him. In the end, only 6 people were going to ascend the mountain: Ling Han, the Rain Emperor, Empress Luan Xing, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, Su Ran, and the Notionless Saint. However, these 6 individuals were all incredibly powerful. In fact, Empress Luan Xing had even reached the peak stage of the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. If she engaged in battle, she would simply be bullying the other king tiers. They made their way through the crowds and prepared to ascend the mountain. Ha! There's another group of naive fools. Heaps of people want to ascend this mountain. However, how many of them have the right to do so? To say nothing of how difficult ascending the Purple Wind Mountain is, they won't even have the opportunity to attempt it. The people in the surroundings all jeered and mocked them, showing absolutely no confidence in Ling Han and the others. After all, the king tiers atop the mountain had all left their followers below. Moreover, among those who could become the follower of a king tier, which of them wasn't a supreme prodigy when compared to ordinary cultivators? Chapter 1431, Unrefined King Tier. Chapter 1431, Unrefined King Tier. Halt! Ling Han and the others were stopped just as they neared the foot of the mountain. This was a group of extremely haughty youths. They were clearly only the followers of some king tiers, yet all of them were as haughty as could be. It was as if their eyes were on their foreheads as they belittled and looked down on everyone else. However, one had to admit that these followers were indeed very powerful. They were all at the heavenly body tier, and one of them had even reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Perhaps this person's cultivation was even higher than that of many the king tiers. However, those who could obtain the title of king tier certainly hadn't done so because of a high cultivation level. Rather, they had obtained this title because of their battle prowess against those at the same cultivation level. Only those who could obliterate everyone at the same cultivation level had the right to obtain the title of king tier. Ling Han glanced at them and asked, "Why?" The king tiers are currently tasting tea and discussing Dao, so all uninvolved persons are prohibited from disturbing them. A youth in purple robes answered indifferently. He didn't so much as glance at Ling Han and the others. Ling Han involuntarily chuckled and asked, "Does your clan own this mountain?" No, the young man in purple subconsciously answered, shaking his head as he spoke. "Then what the hell are you stopping us for?" Ling Han chided. "You." The young man in purple was enraged, flames of anger burning in his eyes. However, upon recalling his master's words, he forcefully suppressed his anger, waving his hand and saying, "Anyhow, no one is allowed to ascend the mountain today." "Then why are there people atop the mountain?" Ling Han asked. He was in quite a good mood, so he started to debate with the youth. The young man in purple was exasperated, and he replied, "If there's no one, how can they taste tea and discuss Dao?" "Exactly. Since others can ascend the mountain, why can't we?" Ling Han chuckled and continued, "Perhaps the tea is too expensive? Rest assured, this brother is rich. Very rich. It's useless regardless of how rich you are. That's a gathering of king tiers. Even ordinary prodigies don't have the right to attend." The young man in purple was already rendered speechless by Ling Han. How was this person so good at sophism? He paused for a moment before asking, "Do you have the right to attend this gathering? Are you very powerful?" "Why not?" Ling Han retorted with a smile. "Although I might not look sturdy, I can battle against 5 of you with no problem. If you can defeat me, I'll allow you to ascend the mountain." Although the young man in purple had only exchanged a few words with Ling Han, he had already become extremely annoyed and exasperated. At this moment, he finally couldn't contain himself any longer. Ling Han looked at his companions and asked, "What about them?" The other followers were all spectating an interesting show at this moment, and they couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing this, replying, "If you can defeat Wendong, we'll allow all of you to pass." "Deal." Ling Han started to stretch his body. Meanwhile, Empress Luanxing and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden both smiled faintly. They were wearing cloaks at this moment, with even their beautiful faces covered by their clothing. Otherwise, they would definitely cause a huge commotion. After all, there were far too many heavenly body tier elites here, meaning that ordinary methods wouldn't be able to hide their beauty. Beside them, the Rain Emperor had his arms crossed before his chest. He naturally felt it beneath him to battle against such small fry. Anyhow, he wasn't feeling impatient at all. After all, the king tiers atop the mountain weren't going to run away. The young man in purple was called Wendong, and upon seeing Ling Han's strange stretches, he couldn't help but chuckle in scorn. "How about this?" he said. "There's no need for us to battle. I'll stand here and let you punch me 3 times. If you can push me back even a single step, I'll make an exception and allow you guys to ascend the mountain." The other followers all giggled and laughed. They were all supreme prodigies, meaning that they were at least 4-star geniuses. In other words, They were far more powerful than those at the same cultivation level. Although when Dong was allowing Ling Han to punch him 3 times, it would be incredibly easy for him to withstand these punches as long as he used his origin power to guard his body. No kidding? Ling Han asked, purposefully looking toward Wen Dong in mock excitement. Why would I trick you? Wen Dong said in disdain. In reality, what did it matter even if they allowed Ling Han and the others to ascend the mountain? Could they resist the strange power of this strange mountain? Even prodigies such as them found it extremely difficult to resist this power. Only King Tiers could resist this strange power as if it were nothing. Then please excuse me, Ling Han said with a chuckle. He was just about to launch a strike, but he suddenly paused, asking, should I use my full power? Of course, Wen Dong answered proudly. What if I accidentally kill you? Ling Han asked apologetically. Wen Dong felt like pulling his own hair out. You think you can kill me with your measly power? What an absolute joke. He humphed and said, punch me as hard as you can. But I can't. If I truly kill you, your parents will definitely come and cause a ruckus. And also your aunties and grandparents and whatnot. What will I do at that time? Ling Han shook his head, and it was as if he wouldn't use his full power no matter what. Wen Dong's face twitched, and his voice involuntarily went up a pitch. I've told you to attack, so just bloody attack. If you can truly wound me, I'll admit that you're powerful. I won't complain even if you kill me. The people here are all witnesses. Ling Han breathed a long sigh of relief, saying, thanks for the assurance. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Fuck, do you truly think that you can kill me? Wen Dong felt incredibly irritated at this moment, and he had a strong urge to beat someone up. However, upon recalling his own promise, he could only humph heavily and said, can you attack now? Ling Han was delighted upon hearing this, and he said, second brother, Brother Su, wives, have you ever seen such a despicable person before? He's actually asking to be beaten up. No, the Rain Emperor and the others replied, smiling as they shook their heads. Even the notionless saint was smiling faintly. Pooh! Even the other followers couldn't help but splutter with laughter. They felt that Ling Han was far too malicious. He had actually dug such a huge trap for Wen Dong. Wen Dong was naturally enraged, and it was as if flames were bursting from his eyes. He was just about to attack. Hey, what are you doing? Didn't we reach an agreement? Ling Han immediately said. Wen Dong's raised fist froze in the air. He was a supreme prodigy, after all, so he naturally cared about his reputation. Under the watchful gazes of everyone, how could he go back on his own words? He was simmering with anger as he lowered his fist, and it was as if there were a ball of pain in his chest. He swore that he would definitely give Ling Han trouble after allowing him to throw his 3 punches. Ling Han's expression suddenly became serious as he started to channel his origin power. He raised his right fist and gathered heaven's might, unleashing a devastating aura into the surroundings. Pa, 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 pa. Many of the surrounding spectators instantly collapsed to the ground. This was heaven's might, and it would render those under Ling Han's cultivation level completely defenseless. Even if one were above Ling Han's cultivation level, their power would still be forcefully suppressed by 2 stars. Wen Dong's expression changed drastically. His cultivation was equivalent to Ling Han's, with both of them at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. As such, he didn't collapse to the ground in fright. However, upon sensing the formidable aura emanating from Ling Han's body, an ice-cold chill involuntarily rose in his heart. This man definitely wasn't an ordinary heavenly body tier elite, nor was he a supreme prodigy. He was a fucking king tier. He had been a follower of a king tier for so long, so how could he not realize this? Wen Dong wanted to cry. They were at the same cultivation level, so how could he block 3 punches from a king tier? To say nothing of 3 punches, he wouldn't even be able to block a single punch. He had been screwed over. A look of grief spread across his face. This crude and unrefined king tier had screwed him over twice. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. He hurriedly shouted. If he were struck by this punch, he would truly have died for nothing. After all, hadn't he said so himself? Ling Han wouldn't need to take responsibility even if he killed him. You're admitting defeat already? There was a look of disappointment on Ling Han's face, and he continued, you've at least got to let me punch you once, right? He started to haggle with Wendong. No, Wendong shouted, shaking his head furiously. Ling Han looked toward the other followers and said, how about one of you replace him? No, the followers shouted, all shaking their heads frantically. Only then did Ling Han say, this mountain isn't owned by your clans, is it? Does it feel awesome and mighty to control entry to this mountain? The spectators finally understood that Ling Han wasn't pretending to be weak to bully them. Rather, he had purposefully pretended to be weak to give these haughty followers a lesson. Chapter 1432, The Victim Has Arrived. Chapter 1432, The Victim Has Arrived. Gasp! Who would have thought? He was actually a king tier. I wonder which galaxy he came from. He was able to become a king tier, so he's definitely from a large galaxy. However, this king tier appears a bit devilish. He purposefully dug a hole for Wendong and screwed him over. Heh, who told them to seal this area off and even prohibit others from ascending the mountain? I feel like he taught them a good lesson. The Purple Wind Mountain isn't owned by their clans. Exactly. The cultivators at the foot of the mountain launched into a spirited discussion, some of them feeling that Ling Han was slightly devilish, and many more of them supporting his actions. Let's climb the mountain, the Rain Emperor said. His fists were already starting to itch. Seeing that Ling Han and the others were preparing to climb the mountain, a cold sneer involuntarily stretched across Wendong's face. Where do you think this is? Why do you think the prodigies chose this place to taste tea and discuss Dao? It's because no one else can reach the top of this mountain. King tiers could naturally reach the top of this mountain with ease. However, even 4-star geniuses like them would feel under immense pressure if they tried to climb to the peak of this mountain. At least, they definitely wouldn't have any remaining energy to engage in battles. According to rumors, the Purple Wind Mountain had only become like this because of the actions of a saint. It was him who had transformed this mountain, imbuing it with its strange powers. When it came to ordinary cultivators, they would struggle to ascend this mountain even if they had reached the heavenly body tier. Only by reaching the pinnacle level in at least one major tier, and then reaching the heavenly body tier would one obtain the ability to climb this mountain easily. Moreover, the more pinnacle levels that one had reached, the easier it would be to climb this mountain. Are these people all king tiers? What a joke. How can that be possible? Wendong was eager to see them fail. He had been embarrassed before everyone, and thus he naturally yearned to see them being embarrassed before everyone as well. This way, he would at least have some consolation. Not only was Wendong thinking this, but many other people were also thinking the same thing. How rare were king tiers? It was extremely difficult for a planet to produce even one king tier. As such, it was likely that there would only be 10 such king tiers in an entire galaxy. Moreover, this was for a large galaxy. If it were a small galaxy, perhaps it would only be able to produce 1 or 2 king tiers. In fact, it was entirely possible that it would produce none. Just as Ling Han and the others were about to embark on their climb, they suddenly saw 3 figures shooting over from the distance. One of them was in a wretched state, with his entire left arm non-existent. All that was left was a patch of mangled flesh. Young Master Yuan? Young Master Yuan! A follower in green suddenly exclaimed. There was a stunned expression on his face. Just then, he hadn't recognized the wounded person because he had refused to believe that anyone on Woodfigure Planet, especially in this Purple Wind Mountain region, would dare to target a member of the Liu clan. Indeed, the wounded person was none other than Liu Shuan, the haughty youth who had been shot by Ling Han. Brother Qing! Liu Shuan exclaimed. Tears involuntarily started to stream down his face as soon as he saw the follower in green. Family. He had finally seen family. He was incredibly moved, and he used his only arm to grab onto the follower in green, saying, Brother Qing, you've got to help me exact revenge. You've got to help me exact revenge. Who wounded you? The person who Liu Shuan referred to as Brother Qing asked, his face cold and full of killing intent. He was called Zhang Qing, and he wasn't actually a member of the Lu clan. Rather, he was the follower of the young king tier, Lu Juntian. He was naturally very powerful, and he was also a prodigy and a 4-star genius. He could be referred to as a supreme prodigy no matter where he went. Anyhow, he had only decided to follow Lu Juntian because he felt that Lu Juntian had a profoundly dazzling future. In fact, he believed that Lu Juntian could become a saint in the future. Meanwhile, he understood that he would have zero chance of becoming a saint himself. As such, if he rode on Lu Juntian's coattails, perhaps he could even become an eternal river tier elite in the future. That was the eternal river tier. Was it not impressive enough? Thus, he treated the Lu clan as his own family. In fact, he treated it as more than his family. It was hundreds of times more important. That being the case, how could he not feel enraged and worried upon seeing Lu Shiwan's severe wounds? It was a group of despicable men and women. Their leader. Lu Shiwan's gaze had been focused on Zhang Qing, yet he suddenly felt a terrifying chill creep up from behind him. He involuntarily turned around to look, only to see the man who was the root of his nightmares behind him. He couldn't help but scream. His speed was slower than Ling Han's, but he hadn't taken any detours along the way. He had directly hurried over here to ask his elder brother to exact revenge for him. Thus, he had only arrived here slightly later than Ling Han and the others. However, just as he was speaking of his nemesis had appeared behind him. Lu Shiwan immediately scuttled behind Zhang Qing in fright, using his only hand to point at Lu Shiwan, shouting, "Brother Qing, it was him. It was him. Hurry up and attack him. Kill him for me. No, severely wound him so I can kill him with my own hand." And those two women, although their faces are covered, their bodies are quite shapely. As he spoke, his mind started to wander. His mind was wandering with lust even under such conditions. From this, it was clear that Lu Shiwan lived up to the name of a true profligate. However, Zhang Qing was instantly terrified. Although he was also a prodigy, could he compete against a true king tier? No, unless his cultivation level was far superior. Right now, however, he was only at the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. He was already no match for him in terms of cultivation level. Moreover, how large was the gulf between prodigies and king tiers? How could he exact revenge for Lu Shiwan? If he attacked, he would merely be seeking death. Brother Qing, why are you hesitating? Hurry up and attack him. Lu Shiwan urged. A look of displeasure spread across his face. He was only referring to Zhang Qing as Brother Qing, because his elder brother had asked him to do so. This was because Zhang Qing was a relatively good lackey he could use. Thus, he needed to take more care of his feelings. However, Zhang Qing was actually pretending to be deaf and mute when his nemesis was right before him. How could Lu Shiwan not be displeased? What's the meaning of this? You're eating from my Lu clan's bowl, yet you're not going to act as my Lu clan's dog? However, how would Zhang Qing dare to attack? There was a bitter look on his face, and he said, "Young Master Yuan, that person is a king tier." What? Lu Shiwan was instantly startled. His elder brother was also a king tier, so he naturally understood what these two words represented: invincible among the same cultivation level. Of course, this was an oxymoron because invincible implied that only one person could become a king tier for any one cultivation level. Even so, a king tier would be invincible at least on their own planet. Even when casting one's gaze over entire galaxies, king tiers would only have fewer than 10 or so opponents. King tier, these two words were like a huge mountain in and of themselves. They were capable of crushing someone until they were barely able to breathe. However, a look of haughtiness immediately returned to Lu Shiwan's face, and he said, "There are ranks even among king tiers. My older brother is a rank 2 king tier." Indeed, just as he said, there were also ranks among king tiers. Even though they were all at the heavenly body tier, would two people be of equivalent power if one had reached 1 pinnacle level while the other had reached 2 pinnacle levels? Even though the benefits of reaching these pinnacle levels would decrease as one advanced in cultivation, the gap between the king tiers would still exist, just that it wouldn't be overly significant. However, to king tiers, any slight gap could prove fatal when they were battling against a fellow king tier of the same cultivation. If a king tier had reached one pinnacle level, they would be referred to as a rank 1 king tier. If they had reached 2 pinnacle levels, they would be referred to as a rank 2 king tier. If they had reached 3, they would be referred to as a rank 3 king tier, and so on and so forth. However, the maximum was only rank 5. After all, there were only so many pinnacle levels for one to reach. It was already common knowledge that king tiers were rare, with one galaxy only producing at most 10 king tiers. Among these, perhaps there would only be 1 or 2 rank 2 king tiers. In fact, it was even possible that there would be none. However, Lu Juntian was none other than a rank 2 king tier. Where's my brother? Call my brother over. Have him suppress this person. Lu Shiyuan finally realized that Zhang Qing wouldn't be able to defeat Ling Han. Zhang Qing immediately made a decision, saying, "I'll inform Master straight away." He knew that Lu Juntian only had this one younger brother, and he was more so extremely doting toward him. Humph, this person actually dared to wound me. He's truly become tired of Li, Lu Shiyuan said arrogantly. There were so many people here, and thus he wasn't afraid of Ling Han attacking him. He wouldn't dare. Peng. However, before he had even finished speaking, he suddenly transformed into a cloud of flesh and blood. Chapter 1433, All King Tears. Chapter 1433, All King Tears. Zhang Qing was just about to ascend the mountain, yet he suddenly stopped in his tracks, his jaws dropping wide open. It was as if he were struck by disbelief. Not only him, but everyone in the surroundings was also stunned. Gazing at the cloud of blood that had once been Lu Shiyuan, then turning to gaze at Ling Han, who was still casually retracting his fist, they felt a sensation of frightening numbness spreading over their bodies. There was also an indescribable chill rising in their hearts. That was Lu Juentian's younger brother. To put things into perspective, at least several hundred of the cultivators present could insta-kill Lu Shiyuan. However, even if Lu Shiyuan slapped them across the face, most of them would still choose to play along with him, perhaps even sticking their heads forward to let him slap them more. Meanwhile, those who were more courageous and powerful might dodge his slaps. However, in terms of fighting back, no one would dare to even think about this. This was simply due to one reason: Lu Juntian. Now, however, someone had actually dared to kill his younger brother. The sky was going to collapse. They could imagine just how wild with rage Lu Juntian would become. Under his wrathful fury, it was even possible that he would kill all of the people present. Who told them to stand idly by as his brother was killed? There was bitterness in their minds. Who knew that Ling Han would kill him? Who knew that Ling Han dared to kill him? Moreover, Ling Han was a king tier. Even if they knew he was going to attack, how many of them would be able to stop him? They were done for. Ling Han had poked a hole in the heavens. The surrounding cultivators were all as quiet as a mouse. What were they going to do now? Why you dare? Zhang Qing stammered. He was also stupefied. Even if you're a king tier, openly killing the younger brother of another king tier is an utter provocation. This is creating a life and death feud. Anyhow, where is your courage coming from? Didn't you hear Lu Shiyuan say? Lu Juntian is a rank 2 king tier. Rank 2? How many rank 2 king tiers exist in the world? However, Ling Han didn't pay any heed to him. Lu Shiyuan had actually dared to speak uncouthly of Empress Luanxing and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. How could he tolerate this? To say nothing of Lu Shiyuan, his reaction would have been the same even if it were Lu Juntian who had uttered those words. He would simply respond with a punch. Let's go. The 6 of them walked away and started to climb the mountain. Holy fuck, how domineering. These people dared to climb the mountain even though they had killed Lu Juentian's younger brother. Just how courageous were they? However, are you certain that you can oppose Lu Juntian? Although he was only at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, he was already regarded as the #1 elite of the Lu clan. Moreover, he had even been praised by a saint before. His battle prowess could only be described as peerless. Zhang Qing was completely flabbergasted. Although he wished that he could kill Ling Han, he couldn't help but feel impressed by his demeanor. This was the courage that a true king tier should possess. He dared to kill, and he dared to face the turmoils that would arise from such an action. His resolve definitely wouldn't be swayed by others. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the others ascended the mountain, appearing as relaxed as could be. Holy fuck, am I seeing things? Am I also seeing things? Gasp! Everyone drew a cold breath. All 6 of them are able to ascend the mountain. Moreover, it appears like they're all ascending it with ease. Holy motherfucker! 6 king tiers. Heavens! They all clasped their heads in astonishment. This was inconceivable. 6 king tiers had actually appeared at once. There were obviously more than 6 king tiers atop the mountain. However, which of them hadn't arrived alone? At most, they had only brought with them a few followers. As such, they had all initially thought that the Rain Emperor and the others were merely Ling Han's followers. Gazing at them now, they realized that the level of followers would have been raised to a completely new level if those 5 people were truly Ling Han's followers. Their incredible power was abundantly clear for all to see. Zhang Qing was also doing his best to climb the mountain, yet he was exerting all of the effort that he could possibly muster. However, the distance between him and Ling Han's group was steadily growing larger and larger. His body was drenched in sweat, yet he couldn't catch up to them no matter what. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the others were casually chattering and joking among themselves, appearing as carefree as could be. If they knew that there were still 2 king tiers in Dingping and Juya, that they couldn't ascend the mountain, because they hadn't reached the heavenly body tier, yet the expressions on their faces would definitely be even more peculiar. Which galaxy did they come from? It's far too terrifying. It actually produced so many king tiers. Perhaps that young man is also a rank 2 king tier? If that's the case, he naturally doesn't need to fear Lu Juntian. Heh, you really have a wild imagination, don't you? Do you think it's that easy to become a rank 2 king tier? There mightn't even be one such king tier among 10 king tiers. Nothing in the world is absolute. Haven't you heard the story? In the past, there was a Shur clan that produced 3 king tiers. Moreover, they were all ranked 2 king tiers. I've naturally heard about that. However, can they compare to the Shur clan? At that time, the Shur clan had a saint. Those king tiers all possessed the bloodline of a saint. But if he isn't a rank 2 king tier, how would he dare to ascend the mountain? The people at the foot of the mountain became engaged in a heated debate. Of course, they were even more eager to witness the battle that was about to explode atop the mountain. Once Zhang Qing brought the news of Lu Xiuan's death up, a bloody battle would definitely erupt among the king tiers. This wouldn't be sparring. Instead, it would be a genuine life and death battle. Interesting. There's a hint of pressure from this wind, and it targets one's divine sense, Ling Han said. This is the doing of a saint, the notionless saint said. He was the most qualified to speak about this. I also did something similar in the past, setting up a forbidden region that only king tiers could enter. The others all chuckled indifferently. This saint was very fond of blowing his own trumpet. In the beginning, they had all been startled and astonished by his stories. However, they had all become immune to it now, and they wouldn't pay much heed to his exaggerated stories. As long as one has reached one pinnacle level, they'll develop an extremely powerful resistance to this might. If they reach 2, they can almost ignore this might, the Rain Emperor said with a nod. Among them, Empress Luanxing was the least affected by the might of the wind. She had reached 3 pinnacle levels, which was an incredibly rare feat, even among saints. In other words, even if the Star Sand Saint were suppressed to the heavenly body tier, he mightn't necessarily be able to defeat Empress Luanxing. Meanwhile, the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was facing a slight struggle. After all, she hadn't reached the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier. Rank 1 king tiers could only just manage to climb this mountain with ease. They weren't climbing quickly, and they were also comprehending the Tao of the Saint as they advanced. This might wasn't just might alone, but also possessed a wisp of the Saint's Tao. Thus, comprehending it would be of some benefit to them. Zhang Qing was climbing the mountain as if his life depended on it, yet he continued to fall further and further behind Ling Han and the others. Eventually, his figure was blocked by a jutting face of the mountain, rendering him invisible. 15 minutes passed, and Ling Han and the others reached the peak of the mountain. A flat platform had been forcefully carved into the top of the mountain, and gazing at the cut marks, it was clear that this platform had been carved numerous years ago. Perhaps it was also the doing of that saint. There were 30 or so people on this peak, though only 4 of them were women. The remaining people were all men. However, regardless of gender, they were all extremely handsome and beautiful youths. Even though some of them had horns, tails, or wings, this didn't prevent them from possessing charm and charisma that was capable of bewitching countless people. This was the demeanor of King Tears. The King Tears were currently discussing Dao, analyzing the transformations of fire element regulations. However, upon sensing the new arrivals, they all turned around to look. Seeing Ling Han and the others, they couldn't help but feel astonished. 6 King Tears had actually arrived at once. Moreover, by the looks of it, they were already very well acquainted with each other. Not only that, but it was also clear that the relationship between them was very good. This was obvious when looking at the distance between them. If they weren't friends, who would feel comfortable allowing someone to stand within 9 meters of them? After all, they were all King Tears. At this moment, the King Tears atop the mountain all developed a sense of hostility toward them. This was because this group of King Tears was far too powerful. If they weren't ranked 2 King Tears, it was possible that they could be easily defeated by this group. Friends, I'm Shangwan Hong, the host of this King Tier gathering. Dare I ask for your names? A young man with wings on his back walked over, a warm smile on his face. It was as if he had no feeling of superiority. Who? At this moment, Zhang Qing's figure finally appeared in the distance. He was like an exhausted dog, his mouth wide agape and puffs of white vapor blowing from it. His face was drenched in sweat, and his body was equally as soaked. Chapter 1434, Small Galaxy? Chapter 1434, Small Galaxy? Had the heavens collapsed? Why was Zhang Qing showing such urgency? Everyone here was a King Tier, so their vision was naturally incredibly powerful. Right now, Zhang Qing was truly climbing the mountain as if his life depended on it. It appeared as if he was only sweating, but in reality, he was actually forcefully raising his speed and gritting his teeth as he resisted the might of the mountain. The damage that was done to him was invisible and intangible, yet it would be serious enough to severely wound his vitality for several years or even decades to come. His cultivation would barely be able to advance an iota. In fact, it was even possible that his cultivation might fall. Lu Juntian naturally recognized that this was his follower. He couldn't help but feel astonished. What serious matter had occurred? It was actually serious enough to force his follower to such a state? He rushed over to meet Zhang Qing, worry growing in his mind. Ling Han didn't so much as glance at them. He simply introduced himself to the King Tiers. The Rain Emperor, Serene, and the Notionless Saint all followed suit. Of course, the Notionless Saint didn't refer to himself as a saint anymore. Otherwise, he would definitely be pummeled by everyone present. Impersonating a saint was far too arrogant an action. Meanwhile, Empress Luanxing and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden didn't speak to introduce themselves. Instead, they each retrieved a chair from their spatial spirit tools before sitting down gracefully. Their movements were elegant and intoxicating, and they instantly attracted the gazes of numerous King Tiers. Brotherling, are you all from the same galaxy? Someone asked. If everyone were from the same nation, they would ask which region they had come from. After all, people from the same region would definitely feel closer to each other. Expanding this notion to galaxies, those from the same nation or same planet would naturally feel closer to each other. Further expanding this notion to the universe and even larger realm, those from the same galaxy would naturally be fellow friends. To King Tiers, this was more so a source of reputation and glory. This was because this could represent the cultivation level of their galaxy. Who didn't want to bring glory to their galaxy? This was much like representing a sect in battle. They would naturally feel hostile toward other sections. This was their sense of pride and glory playing up. Ling Han exchanged a glance with the others before replying, Eastern Light Galaxy. Indeed, Joint Peace Planet belonged to the Eastern Light Galaxy. Since the lower realm had ascended to the Joint Peace Planet, they naturally belonged to Joint Peace Planet, and thus the Eastern Light Galaxy. Eastern Light Galaxy? Blank expressions appeared on the King Tier's faces. They had never heard of the Eastern Light Galaxy before. Which large galaxy was this? It had actually produced 6 King Tiers at once. Eastern Light, Eastern Light. Ah, I know. A King Tier suddenly said with a clap of his hands. There was a look of realization on his face. Which large galaxy is it? The others asked. The King Tier, who had exclaimed in realization, wore a strange expression as he shook his head. What? Is it a super large galaxy? In the immortal realm, those galaxies that had eternal river tier elites were referred to as large galaxies. However, this required the galaxy to have at least 10 eternal river tier elites. Moreover, one of these elites had to be at the consummate level of the eternal river tier. Meanwhile, if a galaxy had a saint, it could be referred to as a super large galaxy. Of course, this didn't require the saint to be a great saint or saint king. It was fine as long as they were a saint. There was no numerical requirement either. After all, producing a saint was far too difficult. Neither of them, the King Tier replied with a shake of his head. The Eastern Light Galaxy is a small galaxy. Small galaxy? The galaxies that couldn't meet the requirement of a large galaxy were all referred to as small galaxies. The King Tiers all wore strange expressions. This small galaxy had actually produced 6 King Tiers? This was incredible. One had to realize that even large galaxies could only produce a maximum of 2 to 3 King Tiers. If they produced 4 to 5, they would definitely be entering a golden age of cultivation. However, a small galaxy? If they prayed day and night, perhaps they would be able to produce 1 King Tier. However, the majority of the time, they would fail to produce even a single King Tier. Moreover, the King Tier paused momentarily, as if he were testing the ability of the other King Tiers to accept his words. This small galaxy only has a single eternal river tier elite. Not only that, but this elite is only at the low extreme. Pooh! Many of the King Tiers spluttered in astonishment. This wasn't because they were uncultured, but because this piece of information was far too difficult to accept. This galaxy barely even had an eternal river tier elite. In reality, there had indeed been no eternal river tier elite in the Eastern Light Galaxy for the past 100 or so years. As such, it could be regarded as a bottom-ranking galaxy even among small galaxies. Yet, it had suddenly produced 6 King Tiers? How could the King Tiers from the large galaxies accept this? To compare themselves against others was sure to drive them crazy. Is this true? It's impossible, right? Brother He, have you remembered things incorrectly? The King Tiers all expressed their doubt over this astonishing revelation. It was simply unfathomable. The King Tier simply smiled and said, "Why don't we ask Brother Ling and the others? They can easily confirm this for us." Ling Han didn't refute the King Tier's information, confirming that the Eastern Light Galaxy indeed only had 1 Eternal River Tier elite. Moreover, this Eternal River Tier elite had already passed away. The King Tiers all yelped in astonishment. This was a rare occasion where they were losing their composure and cool. Fuck, 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 humph. However, there was suddenly a menacing humph at this moment, and they all say Lu Juntian striding over, a harrowing killing intent on his face. His eyes were fixed on Ling Han, and he roared, "Ling Han." Although Zhang Qing didn't know Ling Han's name, Ling Han had already introduced himself just then. As a King Tier, concentrating on several different things was naturally an easy task for Lu Juntian. Ling Han picked at his ears and asked, "What's wrong? I'm not deaf, you know?" "You killed my younger brother," Lu Juntian said gravely. His expression was incredibly dark. His father had passed away early, and he only had this one younger brother. It was evident that he would never get a second younger brother. Thus, regardless of how wanton and profligate Lu Xiuan was, Lu Juntian still cherished him immensely. As the saying went, an older brother was sometimes like a father. However, his only brother had been killed by Ling Han. Ling Han replied indifferently, appearing completely uncaring. He truly didn't care. Lu Juntian was beside himself with rage. This person had killed his younger brother, yet he didn't feel an ounce of guilt or sorrow. Shouldn't I have killed him? Ling Han asked with a smile. I'm sure you're the most familiar with your younger brother's personality. His only use in life is to bring harm and misery unto others. Apart from killing him, what else could I have done? Very well, very well, very well. Lu Juntian repeated this 3 times, a ball of flames materializing above his head with each repetition. These flames then transformed into a fire dragon that arched its back and roared. Roar! A burst of divine sense fluctuated outward, causing the hearts of the king tiers to shudder. So powerful! This burst of divine sense possessed a powerful might that caused them to feel unwilling to become enemies with Lu Juntian. Rank 2 king tiers were indeed powerful. Then there's nothing more to say. Pay with your life. Lu Juntian said coldly. He stared at Ling Han, ready to attack at any moment. Ling Han simply replied with a smile. He had no time to debate the debauchery of Lu Xiuan. He had only been carrying out justice, ridding the world of a sinister person. If Lu Juntian had understood his intentions, he wouldn't have allowed Lu Xiuan to become so wanton in the first place. So, what more was there to say? They could only resolve this conflict through battle. They're about to do battle. Who do you think is going to win? Lu Juntian, of course. He's a rank 2 king tier, and it's difficult for a galaxy to produce even one such king tier. I admit that the Eastern Light Galaxy or whatnot is extremely incredible, being able to produce 6 king tiers at once. However, I'll eat this piece of stone if someone tells me that this small galaxy even managed to produce a rank 2 king tier. Haha, I think the same. The king tiers all shook their heads, none of them confident in Ling Han's ability to win. What a joke. He had come from a small galaxy that didn't even have an Eternal River tier elite, so how could such a galaxy produce a rank 2 king tier? Empress Luan Xing suddenly stood up, asking, If my husband wins, are you people willing to eat a stone? Were her grace and elegance qualities that could be hidden by a mere piece of fabric? Of the people who had witnessed her true appearance, which of them didn't treat her as the goddess of their dreams? Now that she was standing, her dress fluttered lightly in the mountain wind, making her appear like a divine celestial maiden who was about to drift away with the wind. What did it matter that the others were king tiers? All of them involuntarily held their breaths, dazzled by her beauty. She hadn't shown her face, yet she was still able to intoxicate the entire crowd of king tiers. This was the charm of the Empress. Chapter 1435, Battle of the King Tiers. Chapter 1435, Battle of the King Tiers. The king tiers were dazzled by her beauty. However, this feeling of elated surprise quickly turned into intense jealousy. This breathtakingly beautiful woman already has a partner. Detestable. Absolutely detestable. Celestial Maiden, if Ling Han truly wins, we'll be sure to eat some stones, someone said loudly. He refused to believe that Ling Han was also a rank 2 king tier. Meanwhile, Lu Juntian's younger brother had been killed by Ling Han, so Lu Juntian would definitely go all out and unleash his deadliest attacks. As such, Ling Han was already as good as dead. That being the case, this masked yet still seductively beautiful woman would immediately become a widow. Although marrying a widow was a little beneath their status as king tiers, what did that matter? For this woman, it was worth it. Yeah, we'll eat a stone if he wins, numerous others said while patting their chests, all of them harboring the same thoughts. None of them wanted to appear weak before Empress Luan Xing. Empress Luan Xing nodded as she remembered all of these people. When the time came, none of them would be able to escape punishment. Not far from them, Lu Juntian was already burning with rage. Who? The 3 fire dragons about his head danced and slithered about before one of them suddenly dashed out and swooped at Ling Han. Lu Juntian was extremely cautious, and this first attack was only a probing one. Ling Han snapped his fingers in reply. Xiao! A burst of sword chi slashed outward, instantly shredding the fire dragon into pieces. These shredded pieces then transformed into countless sparks that flittered in the air before vanishing. The fire dragon had failed to cause any damage. However, Lu Juntian wasn't worried in the least. If Ling Han couldn't even withstand this strike, he would be a stain on the title of King Tier. What did astonish him, however, was how easily Ling Han dealt with his attack. He was completely unable to determine Ling Han's strength. He raised his right hand and lightly made a pushing motion with his palm. Origin power gathered before forming into another fire dragon. However, compared to the one from before, this fire dragon was at least a dozen times larger. The might that radiated from it was also numerous times more powerful. Ling Han shook his head, again snapping his fingers in reply. Sword chi burst forth, instantly reducing the fire dragon to sparks again. During his 70 or so years on Cloud Apex Planet, his advance in cultivation hadn't been significant. However, his improvement in the Sword Dao had been simply astonishing. With the help of the Reincarnation Tree and Reincarnation Tea, he was able to make huge progress on this path. In terms of Sword Dao alone, he could genuinely be regarded as a grandmaster of the current generation. Still trying to probe me? Ling Han asked with a smile. I came here to see King Tears, not to watch monkeys showing off their tricks. What arrogance! Lu Juntian said with a humph. However, he finally ended his probing attacks, leaping forward and charging at Ling Han. At the same time, he unclasped his right hand, where a long spear rapidly materialized into existence. This wasn't a god tool that he had retrieved from his spatial spirit tool, but rather a weapon that he had formed using his origin power. Frighteningly, this spear was imbued with several divine patterns, making it appear like a supreme elite who was descending from another realm. It exuded a feeling of might and invincibility. Lu Juntian brandished his spear and swept it toward Ling Han. This was a secret technique that he had learned from an ancient site. This spear was profoundly mighty, and it was one of his most powerful attacks. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless. He was also a rank 2 king tier, and their cultivation levels were more so the same. Thus, their power would also be equivalent. Of course, this would be different if he were a special case like Ding Ping, whose power could exceed his cultivation level by 2 stars. In any case, he couldn't underestimate a king tier like Lu Juntian. Ling Han finally moved, making a tapping motion with his finger. The lightning sword technique was instantly activated, sending bursts of sword chi into the surroundings, all of them incredibly quick. How arrogant! Lu Juntian shouted in rage. He had only been probing Ling Han before, so it was understandable that Ling Han had responded by snapping his fingers. However, he was already launching one of his most powerful attacks now. Yet Ling Han was still responding by merely making a tapping motion. You dissed me for probing you and being unwilling to unleash my trump cards, yet isn't that exactly what you're doing? However, as the sword chi spread outward, he immediately felt the immense pressure that was radiating from it. The sword chi unleashed by his opponent genuinely appeared no weaker than his origin power spear. Ordinarily, his spear would be invincible whenever it was unleashed. Even if his opponent were more powerful than him, he would still be able to forcefully rip a hole in their defenses and aggressively attack, killing them in a single strike. Thus, although his power could only surpass 6 stars, his battle prowess could definitely surpass more than this, reaching 7 or even 8 stars. This was the strength of rank 2 king tiers. Boom, boom, boom. Ling Han's sword chi continued to exchange blows with Lu Juntian's spear. Both of their attacks were formed from origin power, yet under the manipulation of the 2 powerful king tiers, they appeared incredibly real and tangible. Each time they collided, there would be dazzling flashes of divine patterns, followed by currents of air that seemed powerful enough to suppress all beings between heaven and earth. In fact, these currents of air would even transform into figures of demons. This intense battle caused the other king tiers to all click their tongues in wonder. At the same time, their expressions also became especially serious. Right now, Each of them was a competitor fighting for a spot to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Following this, they would ascend the path of becoming a saint. Everyone understood that this was a narrow path that only one person could follow to the end. Only one person would be able to emerge from this competition as king. Now, however, both Ling Han and Lu Juntian were displaying a domineering might that was enough to make them tremble in apprehension. How could they beat such supreme king tiers? Prodigies were divided into levels, and the same went for king tiers. How could rank 1 king tiers defeat rank 2 king tiers? Meanwhile, the faces of some king tiers twitched unnaturally. These were the king tiers who had made a gamble with Empress Luan Xing. If Ling Han emerged victorious, they would have to eat the stones on this mountain peak. Although eating a stone wouldn't kill them being king tiers and all, this was still something that they definitely didn't want to do. Firstly, stones would definitely taste disgusting. Secondly, eating stones would definitely feel horrible. Lastly, eating stones would be utterly humiliating, especially for king tiers such as themselves. Lu Juntian, you've definitely got to win. Lu Juntian naturally wanted to win as well. Not only did he want to win, but he even wanted to kill Ling Han. Following a furious roar, raging flames instantly exploded from his body. These flames then transformed into black divine flames. Along with the dazzling spear in his hands, Lu Juntian appeared much like an ancient demon god. Ding, ding, ding. Sword chi swept toward Lu Juntian. However, the divine flames enveloping him transformed into a suit of armor that surprisingly blocked all of the sword chi. Lu Juntian aggressively advanced, and it was as if nothing would be able to stop him. Interesting. Ling Han squinted his eyes. This suit of flaming armor wasn't incredible in its defensive capabilities, but rather devastating in its offensive prowess. It had disintegrated all of the attacks before it, and thus naturally rendered them unthreatening. Fire element cultivation techniques weren't great in terms of defense. However, the person who had created this cultivation technique had raised the offensive power of flames to a pinnacle level, using offense to replace defense. This gave Ling Han an urge to clap his hands and exclaim in wonderment. Not only this, but the suit of fire armor was also extremely capable of wounding the attacker. After all, would one dare to punch it with their bare fists? Ling Han chuckled as he balled his right hand into a fist and directly launched a punch at Lu Juntian. Lu Juntian was astonished. The secret technique he was using was called the Scorching Flame Armor, and it was also a technique that he had obtained from an ancient mystery realm. Its powerful might was evident, and it was a suit of armor that could burn even elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. If one were at the high extreme, it was possible that they could even be directly incinerated into ashes. You actually dare to touch this armor? After a moment as astonishment, Lu Juntian instantly sneered in his mind. His opponent was seeking death. Both of them were king tiers, and it was very likely that Ling Han was also a rank 2 king tier. As such, their battle would have needed to drag on for a long time before a victor could finally be determined. However, who told Ling Han to be rash? He was actually facing his most powerful attack head-on. If this wasn't seeking death, then what was? Since you want death, I'll grant it to you. Lu Juntian didn't dodge, and thus Ling Han's fist howled over just like that, directly blasting at his face. At this moment, Lu Juntian felt extremely peeved, even though he could envision Ling Han's fist being ruthlessly incinerated into ashes. Fucking hell, this person is far too despicable. He's aiming right for my face. Doesn't he know the saying to never aim for one's face? Ling Han's fist arrived. Chapter 1436, Resounding Defea. Chapter 1436, Resounding Defea. The people present were all king tiers of the current generation, and thus they were naturally very skilled when it came to analyzing the battles of others. When Ling Han's fist struck Lu Juntian's face, all of them squinted, and it was as if time had suddenly slowed down, with everything playing out in slow motion. Of course, this wasn't because time had actually slowed down, but rather because their minds were whirring far too quickly, making it seem as if the entire world around them had slowed down. When Ling Han's fist collided with the suit of flaming armor, A ball of boundless flames immediately surged toward him, yearning to disintegrate his fist. However, how powerful was Ling Han's physique? Moreover, he had even bathed in immortal flames before. As such, these flames were but a tickle on his hand. Pung! Without receiving an iota of damage, Ling Han's fist heavily slammed into Lu Juentian's face. Like rolling waves, countless ripples started to undulate across his face. He was then lifted off his feet and sent flying backward. The scene instantly sped up as the flow of time returned to normal. Pa! Lu Juntian thumped into the ground. Astonishment swept over the mountain peak. It was still too early to conclude who would win, yet one thing had already become apparent. Lu Juntian had suffered a huge loss in this exchange. Ling Han retracted his fist. Among those at the same cultivation level, his freakish physique meant that he could ignore any attacks from his opponents. The indestructible heaven scroll was from the celestial realm, and it was more so one of the most advanced cultivation techniques. As such, wouldn't it be embarrassing if he couldn't even suppress a cultivation technique from the immortal realm? Lu Juntian picked himself up, shock all over his face. He was unable to accept this. His flaming armor had failed to even wound Ling Han's skin. All it had achieved was creating a bit of smoke on Ling Han's fist. This was analogous to a mortal quickly sweeping their hand through a flame completely harmless. How is this possible? My divine flames can burn even elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Lu Juntian took a deep breath. Although he had already unleashed one of his most powerful attacks, it was clear that he had still underestimated Ling Han. His opponent was definitely a rank 2 king tier. No wonder you're acting so arrogant. So, it turns out that you're also a rank 2 king tier. He spat in a baleful voice. His words sent a wave of commotion through the king tiers. Rank 2 king tier. A small galaxy that didn't even have an eternal river tier elite had actually produced a rank 2 king tier. How could they accept this? However, if Ling Han wasn't a rank 2 king tier, how could he have sent Lu Juntian flying? Haha, I'm just a so-so, Ling Han replied indifferently. His wife was even more impressive than him. She was a rank 3 king tier. Lu Juentian's expression became even darker. Weren't rank 2 king tiers impressive enough? After all, most saints were only rank 2 king tiers as well. In other words, if they were at the same cultivation level, they could battle toe-to-toe with most saints. However, from Ling Han's reply, rank 2 king tiers were only a so-so. What else did he want? Fine, then let us see which of us is the king among kings. Fighting spirit soared from Lu Juntian as numerous black divine patterns materialized on his body. They were densely packed, and in the end, they transformed into lengths of chains that were wrapped around his body. It was as if he had transformed into a great demon god. Boom! As if they were experiencing the birth of the universe, the sound of rumbling thunder traveled out from Lu Juentian's body. These were the sounds of Dao. The sound of Dao had actually been released from the body of a heavenly body tier elite. Just how incredible was this? Even though the spectators were all king tiers, they still couldn't help but feel stunned by this sight. No wonder Lu Juntian had received praise from a saint. Indeed, he had already far surpassed the level of ordinary king tiers. In fact, his overwhelming prowess even exerted an intangible pressure on the surrounding king tiers, making these absolute prodigies want to gaze up to him in awe. This powerful pressure also provoked Ling Han, causing him to drop his arrogant demeanor and become serious. An intense fighting spirit burst from his eyes, his pupil reflecting the images of exploding heavenly bodies. It was as if his pupils were reflecting a scene of destruction and creation. It was a pity that no one took notice of this. Otherwise, they would definitely become even more shocked. Destruction and creation. This was the highest level of Dao. I'll obliterate you with a single punch. Lu Juntian roared. He charged forward, a profoundly domineering aura emanating from his body. Supreme king tiers like them could battle without pause for several years, or even several hundred years. However, it was also possible that they could determine a victor after just 2 or 3 exchanges. This all came down to whether or not they were willing to unleash their most powerful trump cards. If they were, then the battles would naturally be over in a flash. Chains of regulations that had been formed from divine patterns were wrapped all over Lu Juentian's body, making him appear like a demon king. At the same time, however, there were also sounds of Dao emanating from his body like a chant. These juxtaposing powers made for an extremely peculiar scene. However, no one doubted his supreme power at this moment. Boom! The chains around his body shot out, the sounds of Dao also transforming into a golden figure that possessed 3 heads and 6 arms. All of these attacks surged toward Ling Han. This was Lu Juentian's most powerful ultimate technique. Ling Han didn't hold back, either. He was going to battle with his full strength. In the blink of an eye, Lu Juentian's attack had already arrived. Wang! Ling Han unleashed heaven's might before dashing forward, his hands pushing upward as he also activated Tide of the Ages. Without exception, the chains of regulations and golden figure both started to disintegrate at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Pong pong! Ling Han crashed into these attacks. However, how could these deteriorated attacks that were teetering on the edge of implosion wound or stop him? He crashed straight through them, instantly arriving before Lu Juentian. The spectating king tiers were all transfixed with shock. Such a formidable attack had actually failed to affect Ling Han. As Ling Han's opponent, Lu Juentian had more so already gone numb with shock. He hurriedly raised his arms, crossing them before his chest. Origin power surged before him, forming his last line of defense. However, it was a shame that he was in his weakest state after unleashing his ultimate technique. Moreover, Ling Han had already unleashed Heaven's Might, forcefully suppressing his power by 2 stars. As such, his defense at this moment was laughably brittle and weak. Ling Han launched another punch, again at Lu Juentian's face. Pong! As if it were made from water, Lu Juentian's origin power shield instantly shattered into pieces. Ling Han's fist smashed into his face, sending him flying. However, a dim glow suddenly appeared, and a sigh unexpectedly traveled out from Lu Juentian's body. This sigh carried with it a paramount might, causing all of the king tiers atop the mountain peak to go weak at the knees. This was a suppression on the level of life. It was as like an eternal river tier elite facing a heavenly body tier elite, or a Genesis tier saint facing an eternal river tier elite. Lu Juentian crashed into the ground with a loud thump. Surprisingly, however, only his face was red and swollen. He hadn't been killed. This was inconceivable, not in the least because Ling Han's punch had genuinely been tremendously powerful. In fact, Ling Han had unleashed his full power when throwing that punch. Not to mention that Lu Juentian was only at the medium extreme. His body should have been obliterated even if he were at the peak stage of the pinnacle level. After all, not everyone possessed a physique as freakish as Ling Han's. Once their origin power shield was shattered, their unprotected body would be incredibly weak against attacks. The king tiers were all astounded. This time, their surprise wasn't born from Ling Han's unfathomable strength. Instead, it was caused by that sigh from Lu Juentian's body. That sigh had caused even their souls to tremble in apprehension. This is the might of a Genesis tier saint. I'm certain, someone exclaimed. It wasn't difficult to reach such a conclusion. Many of the king tiers were from super-large galaxies, and some were even the disciples or grand disciples of saints. Thus, it was only natural that they could recognize the aura of a saint. I understand. This was something prepared by the Dipankara saint. Indeed, the Dipankara saint had held high hopes for Lu Juentian, so it's not surprising that he left a wisp of his aura inside his body. As expected of a saint, he saved Lu Juentian's life. However, it can only save him once. The king tiers chattered among themselves, discussing what they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Ling Han could obviously charge over to deal the killing punch, or he could summon his divine demon sword to end Lu Juentian's life. However, since the Dipankara saint had already appeared, him killing Lu Juentian would be equivalent to him opposing the Dipankara saint. Right now, he still didn't possess the right to oppose a saint. So be it. I'll spare Lu Juentian's life. I'll pretend that I'm giving face to a saint. Chapter 1437, Rank 3 King Tier. Chapter 1437, Rank 3 King Tier. In the immortal realm, heaven and earth were great. However, saints were the greatest. Few saints would give face to others. However, perhaps even fewer people could give face to saints. Thus, Ling Han quietly bragged to himself in his mind. However, this was all he could do. If he were more powerful, he could have done as he pleased. He could have killed Lu Juntian without giving face to the Dipankara saint or fearing him. Power, power, power. In the end, everything revolves around power. The spectating king tiers were all speechless with shock. Although Lu Juntian wasn't the highest ranked among them, he was the only rank 2 king tier present. This meant that he was the most powerful among those at his cultivation level. Yet, before Ling Han, he had almost been defeated in the blink of an eye. With this comparison, it was evident just how terrifying Ling Han was. This king tier was far too freakish. Lu Juntian crawled up, his expression dejected and traumatized. He had always known that the Dipankara saint had left a wisp of his aura inside his body. This aura would save his life if he ever came across any fatal danger. However, this was both a protection and a test. He had once been brimming with confidence, certain that the wisp of aura would still be with him when he entered the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Now, however, his confidence had been brutally shattered. The wisp of aura had disappeared, and he had undoubtedly disappointed the Dipankara saint. This also signified that he had already died once. The Martial Arts Academy competition in 20 years. I'll return to defeat you. After saying this, Lu Juntian descended the mountain, not glancing back even once. He was a person of great fortune, and he had once obtained an incredible cultivation technique. However, practicing this cultivation technique was full of dangers. In fact, even a king tier such as him would face the risk of death. Thus, he had never practiced this cultivation technique before, planning to only begin after he entered the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy and had the supervision of the Star Sand Saint. Now, however, he had decided to immediately enter seclusion and cultivate. He would master this cultivation technique in 20 years, thereby giving him the power to wash away today's humiliation. He, Lu Juntian, was a king among kings. Ling Han shook his head. In terms of battle prowess among those at the same cultivation level, Lu Juntian was no more powerful than the Stone Emperor or North Emperor. Meanwhile, Qi Huangji was perhaps even a tad more powerful than him. Being as vast as the universe was, there was absolutely no shortage of prodigies. There was a flash, and Empress Luanxing had already stepped forward. She raised her hand and rapidly pointed at a few people. You. After pointing at all the people, she said, "It's time to eat stones." They genuinely had to eat stone? The king tiers singled out by Empress Luanxing all wore awkward expressions on their faces. They had indeed said that they would eat stones if Ling Han won. However, who would have thought that he would actually win? If they ate a stone before the others, what face would they still have? All of them remained silent and unmoving. Anyhow, there were so many of them. So what could Empress Luanxing do if they resisted? Would she dare to challenge all of them at once? Killing intent started to ooze from Empress Luanxing. She was an incredibly proud individual, and she had also been an empress for 1,000,000 years. Her decree was the decree of heaven. So, who dared to oppose her? She wouldn't mind going on a killing spree. A man in green flew over and said, "Heh, this celestial maiden, why don't we make a bet?" There were 3 streaks of white-veined patterns on his forehead. However, these vein patterns didn't affect his appearance, instead making him appear even more profound. He was a beautiful man, an incredibly handsome man. "Why don't we have a sparring match? If you win, I'll force these people to obediently eat dirt," he said with confidence and haughtiness. The 10 or so king tiers who had lost their gamble with Empress Luanxing were all enraged. If they teamed up, who in the heavenly body tier could block them? Yet, this person dared to say that he would force them to obediently eat dirt. Where was his courage coming from? "I'm Zhu Yu," the man said. There was adoration in his eyes as he gazed at Empress Luan Xing. This was a woman who could capture one's soul without even needing to reveal her true appearance. Thus, he couldn't help but feel love and adoration for her. A smile appeared on his face, and he continued, "If I win, however, why doesn't this celestial maiden show me her true appearance? What do you say?" Empress Luan Xing was infuriated upon hearing this. The projection of a large snake slowly materialized behind her, a single horn on its head even though it was clearly a snake. Like a true dragon, its body was coiled, an astonishing might radiating from its body. "If you lose, you can eat stones alongside them," Empress Luan Xing said in a menacing voice. Zhu Yu laughed heartily and replied, "Deal." With a single thought, several heavenly bodies instantly materialized behind his body. Counting carefully, it was clear that there were a whopping 4 heavenly bodies, each of them covered with ancient words that continuously flowed over their surface. However, it was seemingly impossible to identify what these ancient words said. Consummate level of the heavenly body tier. I reached the pinnacle level in both the mountain river tier and the sun moon tier, Zhu Yu said proudly. Now, I've reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Who's powerful enough to oppose me? His words sent a wave of commotion through the king tiers. What? A third rank 2 king tier has appeared? There were only 30 or so king tiers present. Since when had rank 2 king tiers become so commonplace? However, it was no wonder that Zhu Yu was so haughty. He was a rank 2 king tier on top of being at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Who at the heavenly body tier could be his opponent? Only rank 3 king tiers would be able to surpass him. However, was this possible? Even among saints, only a rare few individuals had been prodigious enough to become rank 3 king tiers. According to rumors, the Star-Sand Saint was one such supreme king tier. Meanwhile, his 9 disciples were all rank 2 king tiers. Thus, those who entered the Star-Sand Martial Arts Academy would at least need to be rank 1 king tiers. If one wanted to become the personal disciple of the Star-Sand Saint, they would at least need to be a rank 2 king tier. However, the Star-Sand Saint was going to pass on his inheritance this time, so the requirement for his disciple would only be higher. Perhaps one would need to be a rank 3 king tier to have any chance. This requirement was incredibly high. There were only 4 major tiers from the Mountain River tier to the Eternal River tier, yet one would need to have reached the pinnacle level in 3 of these major tiers. Such a requirement was insane enough to have the majority of king tiers shake their heads and sigh. Meanwhile, Zhu Yu couldn't help but feel haughty. Originally, he wasn't one to show off and act arrogantly. However, the appearance of Empress Luan Xing had caused him to change his mind. Like a peacock displaying its feathers, he was eager to display his talents to capture the heart of the beauty. How is it? Do you understand the might and power of this brother now? Hurry, show me your adoring and worshipping gaze. Boom! Empress Luan Xing lashed out, the universe seemingly collapsing as her palm pressed down. Zhu Yu's expression changed drastically. The might of this palm was far too terrifying. In fact, even the flow of his blood was stopped, a cold chill shooting through his body. The terror that befell him was as if he were lurking near hell's gates. He made a symbolic attempt to block. However, the unstoppable power of Empress Luan Xing surged over, immediately blasting him backward. He was like a grasshopper trying to stop a carriage, useless and hopelessly overpowered. Pong! His body arced through the air before heavily crashing into the ground with a beautiful pose. Silence instantly fell over the king tiers. The only sound remaining was that of heavy breathing. Zhu Yu is a rank 2 king tier. Moreover, he's also at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. How was he sent flying by a single slap? This woman, she's at the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. What did it matter if one had reached the pinnacle level of the Sun Moon tier and Mountain River tier? If they came across someone who had reached the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier, their fate could only be described in one word: defeat. This would be the case even if the latter person hadn't reached the pinnacle level in the previous 2 tiers. Of course, this was unless both of them had reached the Eternal River tier. At that stage, the The person who had reached 2 pinnacle levels would definitely be more powerful than the person who had only reached 1. The higher one's cultivation, the more difficult it would be to reach the pinnacle level. As such, most king tiers would only reach the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. It was also because of this that rank 2 king tiers were incredibly rare, and rank 3 king tiers, well, throughout the hundreds of neighboring galaxies, only the star Sand Saint had successfully become a rank 3 king tier. Gasp! She had even reached the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier, so it was extremely likely that this woman had also reached the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier and the pinnacle level of the sun moon tier. Rank 3 king tier. Chapter 1438, Eating Stones. Chapter 1438, Eating Stones. Rank 3 king tier. The king tiers were all numb with shock. Right now, all they could do was breathe heavily as they watched on. Although this was only speculation, it was speculation that had at least an 80% chance of being true, perhaps even 90%. Was Zhu Yu powerful? Definitely. However, even someone as powerful as him had been defeated in an instant. This further highlighted just how terrifying this empress was. Her might was so formidable that she had crushed him with a single strike. It's your choice. You can either eat stones by yourself, or I can force you to eat stones, the empress said calmly. They had actually dared to question Ling Han's ability. In her eyes, this was an abhorrent crime. The king tiers who had lost their gamble against her couldn't help but grimace. How humiliating. They actually had to eat stones before everyone else. Moreover, this was the Purple Wind Mountain. Each stone, each tree, and each blade of grass was affected by the aura of a saint. Eating the stones on this mountain would definitely affect their digestion. However, did they dare to oppose her? Even Zhu Yu had been defeated in a single exchange. Moreover, those at the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier were just as powerful as elites at the low extreme of the eternal river tier. How could they challenge such an elite? The other king tiers were all chuckling in amusement as they watched on. They were naturally delighted to see these people being humiliated. In fact, it would be even better if they left with their tails between their legs. That way, the competition to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy in 20 years' time would become slightly less intense. After all, they were all king tiers, so who dared to say that they were absolutely confident? Of course, this was disregarding rank 2 king tiers. There were far too few of these king tiers, and the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy was furthermore recruiting 900 disciples this time. If there were more rank 2 king tiers than this, it would be far too unbelievable. I'm not going to eat it, someone shouted defiantly. My master's master is the venerable Tiger Cloud, and he's an elite at the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. Since he couldn't defeat Empress Luan Xing, he could only use his background to threaten her. I'm not eating stones either. My master's lineage is that of the complete origin saint. This person possessed an even more impressive background. Empress Luan Xing humphed coldly before suddenly lashing out. Pa, pa, pa. The limbs of the defiant king tiers were instantly shattered. These king tiers collapsed to the ground, groaning in agony. Empress Luan Xing remained silent as she turned her gaze toward the remaining king tiers. This was a silent threat. If they refused to eat stones, this would be their fate. What Eternal River tier elite? What Genesis tier saint? She couldn't care less about these king tiers' backgrounds. The king tiers grimaced again. This woman was not only powerful, but she was also extremely audacious. She didn't give a sh*t regardless of whether their masters were at the Eternal River tier or Genesis tier. She was intent on forcing them to eat stones. Several people stepped forward, each picking up a stone and obediently starting to eat it. The crunch of their chewing was loud and embarrassing. What am I seeing? The heavenly body tier elites and winged humans in the sky all rubbed their eyes in shock. They could barely believe what they were witnessing. Heavens! The people at the foot of the Purple Wind Mountain were extremely curious, asking, Senior Chun, what's going on? Uncle Lu, what have you seen? Great-grandpa, hurry up and tell us. However, it was as if the cultivators in the sky had all become stupid. After a long moment, an older generation heavenly body tier elite finally composed himself, saying, "A few of the king tiers lost a bet, and they're now eating stones." His voice was shaking, and it was clear that he still hadn't fully recovered from his shock. Pooh! Many of them instantly spluttered in astonishment. Eating stones? Those were king tiers. Their face and reputation were even more important than their lives. How could they carry through with such a humiliating act? However, reality proved that between their face and their life, it was still their life that was far more important. What were they betting on? Whom did they bet against? The cultivators at the foot of the mountain were all captivated by what was going on. After learning that Ling Han had defeated Lu Juntian and that Empress Luan Xing had defeated a rank 2 king tier at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier with a single strike, all of them were dumbfounded with shock and fright. Initially, none of them had been confident in Ling Han's and his companion's abilities. However, who would have thought that they were actually this domineering and powerful? Not only were they all king tiers, but there were even rank 2 and rank 3 king tiers among them. Heavens! I'm about to go crazy. I've heard that they all came from the Eastern Light Galaxy, which is only a small galaxy. This is a small galaxy that doesn't even have an eternal river tier elite. Who can tell me, how did such a galaxy produce a rank 3 king tier? The cultivators all clasped their heads as they exclaimed in shock. This was far too incredible. No matter how they thought about it, it was still as if they were dreaming. Atop the mountain peak, Zhu Yu slowly crawled to his feet, planning to scurry away and flee while no one was looking. He couldn't bring himself to eat dirt and whatnot. With a flash, Empress Luan Xing had already arrived before him, blocking his path of escape. Her flawless figure was radiating with a powerful aura that was capable of suppressing even the heavens. Zhu Yu's expression instantly changed, and he said, "Celestial Maiden, you should always choose to forgive when possible. I'm a rank 2 king tier, and even if I don't become a rank 3 king tier, my battle prowess will be no weaker than yours when I advance to the Eternal River tier. It's best that you don't force." Pa! Empress Luan Xing made a slapping motion, and Zhu Yu was instantly sent flying. A row of his teeth was forcefully knocked out. The Empress turned around, saying, "Heavenly Phoenix, bring me a rod and string." "Yes, sister." The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden hurriedly did as the Empress asked. The two women then trussed Zhu Yu up tightly, sealing his cultivation while they were at it. How could Zhu Yu break free and escape from them? He was hung high up on a rod, swaying helplessly whenever the mountain wind breezed over. Great! His reputation and face had truly been ruined now. The king tiers who were eating stones glanced over, cold sweat instantly pouring down their foreheads. They started to eat their stones with even more energy and vigor. It was as if these weren't stones that had been tempered by a saint, but rather an immensely appetizing meal. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of their chewing was as crunchy as could be. The Rain Emperor laughed heartily as he stepped forward, asking, "Who wants to spar with me?" He summoned his 4 heavenly bodies, revealing his cultivation to everyone present. This was also to prevent those at the high extreme or even medium extreme from challenging him. After all, sparring against them would be far too boring and pointless. "I'll spar against you," a young man in purple said as he walked over. There was a layer of scales on his skin, and it was as if they had been forged from fine iron. They exuded an extremely chilly aura. Ling Han and his companions were far too domineering. They had first defeated Lu Juntian, then defeated Zhu Yu. This caused a feeling of hostility to rise in the minds of the remaining king tiers. There was a ball of fire in their chests, and they wanted to achieve victory against one of Ling Han's companions even if they couldn't defeat Ling Han or Empress Luan Xing. This challenger was at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, and the 4 heavenly bodies that he released were all of the same size. It was clear that he had already reached the peak stage of the consummate level. "Come!" the Rain Emperor roared as he charged over and immediately threw a punch. His path was one of dominance, and he would courageously attack regardless of who his opponent was. In fact, he would dare to attack even if his opponent were a saint. Boom, boom, boom. The young man wasn't a pushover. Although he was only a rank 1 king tier, The Rain Emperor hadn't reached the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier either. Thus, the gap between them was only very minimal. Moreover, the scales on the young man possessed incredible defensive abilities, being able to dissipate much of the power behind the Rain Emperor's attacks. Thus, even though his power was 1 to 2 times weaker than the Rain Emperor's, he could rely on his powerful defense to mitigate this disadvantage. This was the advantage of his bloodline. However, this was also the limit of what his bloodline could achieve. Apart from the bloodlines of ancient supreme prodigies, how powerful and mighty could these other bloodlines be? The Rain Emperor ruthlessly defeated the young man after throwing just 37 punches. The ground was littered with the young man's scales. Moreover, the young man didn't have any excuse for his loss. He had lost comprehensively. It can't be, right? Is this another rank 2 king tier? Good heavens! This many high-ranking king tiers were produced by a super small galaxy? This doesn't make any sense. Don't tell me that their other companions are also rank 2 king tiers. Why do I feel like they all are? The remaining king tiers were unable and unwilling to accept this reality. Since when had rank 2 king tiers become so commonplace? During the past recruitment cycles of the Star-San Martial Arts Academy, there would only be 20 or so king tiers at this level. Now, however, there were several such king tiers on this mountain peak alone. Moreover, there was even a rank 3 king tier among them. Chapter 1439, Gu Daoyi. Chapter 1439, Gu Daoyi. The tea tasting and Dao discussion gathering between the king tiers eventually became a platform for Ling Han and his companions to flex their strength. Su Ran and the Notionless Saint also stepped forward one after another, easily defeating any king tier who challenged them. They were also ranked 2 king tiers. Only when the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden stepped forward did the king tiers feel that normality had returned. This was because there was finally a rank 1 king tier among Ling Han's group. Among the 6 king tiers, a whopping 4 of them were rank 2 king tiers, while one of them was more so a rank 3 king tier. This was truly a formidable force. It's extremely likely that they'll all qualify to enter the Star-San Martial Arts Academy. At least, it won't be a problem for those 5 of them. That's right. If even rank 2 king tiers don't have the right to enter, then the rest of us won't even stand a chance. Everyone shook their heads in disbelief. However, would king tiers lose their confidence so easily? They immediately steeled themselves and rediscovered their confidence. After reaching the Eternal River tier, they would have been dragged back to almost the same starting line. There wouldn't be a huge gap between rank 1 and rank 2 king tiers. In other words, they still had a chance. Moreover, if they could reach the pinnacle level of the Heavenly Body tier or Eternal River tier, that would definitely be even more impressive. Of course, the difficulty of doing so would naturally be many-fold that of reaching the pinnacle level of the previous major tiers. In reality, only very few people could reach the pinnacle level of the Heavenly Body tier after failing to reach the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. Similarly, few people could reach the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier after failing to reach the pinnacle level of the Heavenly Body tier. This was more so the case with Genesis tier saints. If someone genuinely managed to reach the pinnacle level of the Genesis tier, they would definitely be the ruler among saints. They would be a supreme king tier who could defeat anyone in their way. However, rank 5 king tiers had only ever existed in the legends. They had never appeared in real life. Anyhow, it wasn't long before the gathering of king tiers came to an end. Most of the king tiers also exchanged their current addresses at the conclusion of the gathering. They weren't planning on adventuring to faraway places during this time, and they would instead quietly wait for the Star-San Martial Arts Academy to begin recruitment. In any case, there were only 20 or so years until this time arrived. To them, 20 years would pass as quickly as the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the others had only arrived this early because they were worried that the Star-San Martial Arts Academy might begin its recruitment earlier. After all, the planned timeline of 100 years had only been conceptual, not precise. They settled down in a nearby city, refining pills and cultivating as time quietly crept by. More and more king tiers arrived on Woodfigure Planet, some of them wanton and seeking battles everywhere. The Rain Emperor was one of them. Among these king tiers, some of them performed impressively and thus became renowned throughout the area. For example, the Rain Emperor had received the title of Fists Demon. This was because he only used his fists during battles, relying on his domineering battle style to obliterate his opponents. He was much like a frenzied demon. However, what caught Ling Han's attention was the fact that Gu Daoyi had also arrived. He had become a brilliant rising star, attracting the reverence and following of countless people. According to rumors, even king tiers had submitted to him, willingly becoming his followers. Just this fact alone was enough to send shockwaves through Woodfigure Planet. Those were king tiers. They were high and mighty beings who could look down on everyone else. Yet, they had actually become someone else's follower? This was evidence of Gu Daoyi's charisma and profound power. Otherwise, how would king tiers have submitted to him and become his followers? No one knew what rank king tier Gu Daoyi was. However, right now, he was the most dazzling rising star on this planet. His might and renown were far above those of anyone else. Meanwhile, Empress Luanxing had also become famous. This was because she had defeated Zhu Yu in a single strike. Some king tiers had come over to challenge her upon hearing this, yet they had all been suppressed by her in a single strike. And thus, she was given the title of King Tier Assassin. There were two layers of meaning behind this title. Firstly, this represented her tremendous power. Secondly, this described her breathtaking charm. The king tiers who witnessed her beauty would all be enchanted by her, willing to become her loyal subjects. If there were someone who could rival Gu Daoyi's popularity, that would be Empress Luanxing. Right now, everyone was eagerly anticipating a battle between these two renowned king tiers. Gu Daoyi, huh? Ling Han recounted the events of the Medicine King's cave to Empress Luanxing. A serious expression appeared on Empress Luanxing's face as she heard the story of Gu Daoyi. He had originally been an elite of the celestial realm. Just this fact alone would be enough to stun everyone in the immortal realm. After living 9 lives and burying his 9 previous bodies, he had finally used these to nurture the divine fetus of his 10th life. Even in the celestial realm, such a divine fetus would be tremendously rare and top-notch. Moreover, those with a divine fetus would also possess heaven-defying talent. Are you certain that he buried his 9 previous bodies and nurtured a divine fetus for his 10th life? Empress Luanxing asked, appearing slightly emotional. In fact, even her slender body was trembling. I'm certain, Ling Han answered with a nod. What's wrong? He's definitely practicing the 9 Deaths Heaven art, Empress Luanxing said with certainty. How do you know? Empress Luanxing paused for a moment as if recalling something. After a long while, she replied, the ancient ancestor of the 9 Snake tribe obtained a cultivation technique in an ancient site. It was because of this cultivation technique that they were able to become renowned throughout the celestial realm. This cultivation technique was the 9 Deaths Heaven art. What? Ling Han was astonished. Then how come Gu Daoyi is also practicing the 9 Deaths Heaven art? Is he also a member of the 9 Snake tribe? Empress Luanxing shook her head and said, Impossible! At that time, every single member of the 9 Snake tribe left the celestial realm, not leaving a single tribe member behind. Gu Daoyi definitely inherited the 9 Deaths Heaven art after entering the ancestral grounds of the 9 Snake tribe. She paused for a moment before continuing. Perhaps he's grasped even more of the 9 Deaths Heaven art than I have. After all, I only inherited this cultivation technique from my bloodline. However, my bloodline has equally limited my mastery and understanding of this cultivation technique. Moreover, the ancient ancestor of the 9 Snake tribe didn't attain great accomplishment in the 9 Deaths Heaven art, either. Thus, even if my bloodline awakens, I still won't reach the pinnacle level of the 9 Deaths Heaven art. So, I definitely have to return to the ancestral grounds of the 9 Snake tribe to personally read the scripts of the 9 Deaths Heaven art. Ling Han was astonished, saying, in other words, the bloodline of the 9 Snake tribe isn't inherent, but rather a result of practicing the 9 Deaths Heaven art? Empress Luanxing smiled warmly, replying, no bloodline is inherent. It's only because the ancestor of a tribe has practiced or created a powerful cultivation technique and fused it into their bloodline that they're able to pass it down generation after generation. However, the larger the generational gap, the thinner this bloodline becomes. Ling Han pondered for a moment before asking, if you obtain the complete 9-death heaven art, will your cultivation level climb more rapidly? Certainly, Empress Luanxing answered with a nod. Burying 9 previous bodies to birth the 10th divine fetus is the highest-ranking secret technique of the 9 deaths heaven art. I only know of the existence of this technique, but I don't actually know how to practice it. If I can absorb the power of the divine fetus, my 9-snake body will definitely evolve into its most perfect form. Ling Han immediately clapped his hands, saying, then we definitely have to capture Gu Daoyi and force him to hand over the 9 deaths heaven art and divine fetus. You seem even more enthusiastic than me? Empress Luanxing asked with a smile. Ling Han's expression became serious, and he said, of course. I want you to reach the Genesis tier as soon as possible. The Empress faltered for a moment before coming to her senses. Ling Han was eager to bed her. Yet, he had actually said that with such seriousness. However, she liked that. Since he couldn't make love with the Empress, he would conquer the heavenly phoenix divine maiden first. They were all his wives, anyway, so he couldn't treat one better than the other. Moreover, this violent woman had even experienced widowhood for him for 10,000 years. It was probably time for him to reward her. Ling Han entered the Black Tower after refining some pills. Right now, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was under huge pressure. Thus, she would cultivate under the reincarnation tree whenever she had time. This was so that she could catch up to everyone else's footsteps. Otherwise, it was possible that she might even fail to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Wife, I've come to deliver some alchemical pills for you. Ling Han found an excuse to talk to her. Otherwise, if this violent woman became stubborn, she would ignore even him. Chapter 1440, Marital Harmony. Chapter 1440, Marital Harmony. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was forcefully dragged aside by Ling Han, and she said in irritation, you already gave me some alchemical pills a few days ago. Why are you bringing me more so soon? Because I miss you, Ling Han said with a smile. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden stared at him and said, are you having dirty thoughts? Ling Han chuckled drily and replied, is thinking of you a dirty thought? Sigh, where is the basic trust that should exist between people? The heavenly phoenix divine maiden also chuckled, saying, if your hands weren't groping me, perhaps I might have believed you. Ling Han put on a serious expression and said, I'm giving you a body examination to determine whether you've become fatter or skinnier. Then have I become fatter or skinnier? The heavenly phoenix divine maiden asked, giving him a sideways glance. Your body feels so nice, Ling Han whispered into her ear, not giving a direct answer. Each of his hands had already conquered one of her shapely breasts, his warm breath flowing down her smooth and jade-like neck. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was blushing so much that even her neck had a pink tinge to it. This was an intoxicating sight. Damn pervert, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden murmured quietly. Her 2 breasts had been conquered, and this caused her blood to course through her body in excitement. Moreover, her neck was actually an even more sensitive location, and the warm breath flowing over it caused her slender body to involuntarily shudder. Wife, your body is so soft and supple, Ling Han said smugly. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden's reaction was the best encouragement for him. Stop mucking around. I still need to cultivate, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden said. She was very easily embarrassed. Say, wife, you were thick-skinned enough to act as my widow for 10,000 years. No matter what, I have to make you my true wife today. Only then will I be able to repay your loyal feelings. Ling Han started to strip her clothes, one layer after another. You damn pervert. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden hurriedly tried to stop him. However, whenever she tried to guard a part of her body, another part of her body would be stripped naked. In the end, she failed to guard any part of her body. Ling Han clicked his tongue in wonder, saying, "Wife, your skin is so white and smooth, almost as if it's carved out of jade. See, my hands can't stop themselves. They've already slid to the bottom." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was incredibly embarrassed, and she couldn't help but glare at him. Ling Han was actually teasing her. Please, don't. In her current state, she could only beg Ling Han to stop. Ling Han chuckled and said, "Wife, when you went to my place back then, you would take whatever you wanted. However, did I ever argue with you? After 10,000 years, it's time for me to seek the repayment along with some interest." Ling Han, young Master Han, Brother Han. The more the heavenly phoenix divine maiden called him, the more seductive her voice became. In fact, her last exclamation of "Brother Han" almost melted Ling Han's heart. "Just let me off once, okay? Okay. Call me brother a few more times," Ling Han said, not retreating from his position. "Brother Han, good brother," the heavenly phoenix divine maiden called, her face flushed completely red. "Heh, this is more like it." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden breathed a sigh of relief. Was Ling Han finally going to retreat? However, she was immediately astonished because not only was Ling Han showing no signs of retreat, but he was even taking things a step further, grabbing her in his arms and carrying her into the bedroom. "You're going back on your words." She was almost about to cry. She hurriedly wrapped her arms around Ling Han's neck, not allowing him to put her down. She then bit his shoulder and said, "Ling Han, why are you going back on your words?" "Hee, when did I say I would retreat if you called me brother?" Ling Han asked with a mischievous grin. "Damn pervert. I'll fight to the death with you." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden twisted her slender body as she started to aggressively resist. Pong, pong, pong. The two of them became entangled as they scuffled. "Ow wow." Ling Han suddenly cried out in agony, saying, "Wife, where are you kicking? That's little Han. If you break little Han, the one who suffers will be you." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was both embarrassed and worried. She had accidentally kicked Ling Han between his legs. "It's not hurt, is it? How can it not be hurt? There's a burning sensation all over it." Gasp. "I think my balls are about to shatter." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was so worried that the color drained from her face. She had only been embarrassed, and it wasn't as if she didn't want to make love with Ling Han. "What should we do? What should we do? Can you check it for me and also console little Han?" The heavenly phoenix divine maiden faltered for a moment before realizing that she had fallen victim to Ling Han's evil ploy. Just how astonishing was his physique? How could he have been injured by her? She aggressively hammered his chest, exclaiming, "Damn pervert, you're playing tricks on me again." However, Ling Han ignored her words, instead passionately sealing her lips with a kiss. This caused the heavenly phoenix divine maiden to gradually calm down. She then reached over and wrapped her arms around his neck, their tangling bodies causing her to finally lose her defenses. Ling Han finally entered her, causing her to let out a soft and intoxicating moan. This was a passionate and steamy affair. After a long while, the bedroom finally fell quiet. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was resting in Ling Han's lap, her beautiful cheeks still flushed and intoxicating red. She punched Ling Han's chest, saying, "You bullied me? After being bullied by you for so many years, can't you allow me to bully you once or twice?" Ling Han laughed heartily and continued, "I'm a man, so I won't argue with you. Just let me spank your bottom 10 times a day." "In your dreams." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden jumped up in fright. However, how could she escape from Ling Han's grasp? Ling Han reached over and immediately pulled her back. Pa, pa, pa. He aggressively spanked her bottom. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden's shapely bottom undulated with his strikes, and this was an indescribably beautiful scene. TSK, 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 not bad. I have to make this a daily habit of mine. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had already passed. There was great marital harmony between Ling Han and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, his yang supplementing her yin, and her yin supplementing his yang. Moreover, with the help of an exorbitant amount of alchemical pills, Both of them saw improvements in their cultivation level. One of them advanced to the high extreme, while the other advanced to the medium extreme. Meanwhile, Dingping and Zhuoyao also advanced rapidly, both of them successfully breaking through to the heavenly body tier. Following this, there was no more significant weakness in their group. At the same time, Gu Daoyi's name was also becoming more and more renowned. In fact, there was even a faint suggestion that he was the number one king tier of the younger generation. Although he hadn't advanced to the Eternal River tier yet, it was rumored that he was already invincible among the heavenly body tier. Several more months passed, and the North Emperor and the Stone Emperor finally arrived together. They then both came over to visit Ling Han. Ling Han was relatively famous, after all, so it was extremely easy to find him. Brother Ling. These two clearly weren't from the same galaxy, yet they always seemed to be together. It was hard not to suspect that there was some unspeakable secret between them. Brother Stone, Brother North? Ling Han exclaimed as he walked over to greet them. Huh, Brother Ling sure is extraordinary. Only less than 100 years have passed, yet you've already advanced to the high extreme of the heavenly body tier. This is truly incredible, the Stone Emperor exclaimed. He had already held Ling Han in high enough regard, yet he was still given a start by Ling Han's astonishing growth. However, Ling Han shook his head, saying, I'm still no match for you two. He couldn't see through the Stone Emperor and North Emperor's auras, and this signified that they were most likely at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, perhaps even the pinnacle level. Oh, Ling Han, are you trying to be humble, or are you trying to show off? The North Emperor remarked with a shake of his head. Anyhow, several powerful king tiers have popped up recently. We truly can't underestimate the talents of this world. The Stone Emperor nodded in agreement, saying, perhaps the universe is entering a golden age of cultivation. Those who advance to the position of saint in this age might create history and even shatter the unreachable barriers, maybe even becoming saint kings. Chapter 1441, Great Opportunity at the Sunken Abyss Valley. Chapter 1441, Great Opportunity at the Sunken Abyss Valley. Saints were rare, and saint kings were even rarer. The latter were the true king tiers of the immortal realm, possessing the ability to kill even great saints with a simple wave of their hand. However, there was no such king tier nearby, at least not in the surrounding hundreds of galaxies. Even when looking 10 billion years into the past, no such king tier had ever existed in this region of the universe. I don't know about Saint Kings, but it's rumored that the Star Sand Saint is about to reach the end of his lifespan. When a great saint returns to Dao, this will definitely affect the circulation of heaven and earth. Perhaps this can even give the younger generations a glimpse into the secrets of becoming a saint. The North Emperor was slightly more conservative in his vision of the future. After accumulating in preparation for so long, a Saint King will definitely be produced in this new age, the Stone Emperor said with confidence. The two of them started to argue, their faces quickly becoming beet red with fervor. In the end, they almost came to punches. Fortunately, the Rain Emperor arrived at just the right moment, not speaking a word as he directly launched an attack. They then ascended into the sky as they engaged in battle, the Rain Emperor displaying his domineering demeanor as he challenged two king tiers alone. However, the Rain Emperor was truly powerful, not being pushed onto his back foot even though he was battling against two fellow king tiers. Meanwhile, the North Emperor and Stone Emperor couldn't bring themselves to summon their god tools. After all, they were already enjoying a significant advantage. In the end, after half a day, the battle concluded as a draw. How enjoyable! The Rain Emperor laughed heartily as he descended from the sky. Brotherling, who is this? He's also a fearsome prodigy, the Stone Emperor asked with a smile. However, this battle hadn't hurt his confidence. The Rain Emperor was most skilled with his fists, so it made little difference whether he used a weapon or not. However, it was a different story for the Stone Emperor and North Emperor, both of who could only unleash their full power when using their weapons. Thus, with their battle prowess suppressed, it wasn't embarrassing that they had only managed a draw against the Rain Emperor, even though they had fought against him 2-on-1. This is my second brother, Ling Han said, introducing the Rain Emperor to the Stone Emperor and the North Emperor. The Stone Emperor and the North Emperor clicked their tongue in wonderment. You guys are insanely impressive. Both of you have come from a small world, yet both of you have managed to become rank 2 king tiers. It was almost accepted as a fact that a galaxy could only produce 2 rank 2 king tiers at any one time. Moreover, this would have to be a super large galaxy. However, Ling Han and his second brother had shattered this fact, both of them having come from the same small world. Ling Han smiled faintly. There was also Ding Pingyi had also come from the lower realm, and he was also a rank 2 king tier. I can finally confirm it now. We're definitely entering the most brilliant golden age of cultivation, the North Emperor said with a clap of his hands. However, I wonder if it's a fortune or a curse to be born during this age, the Stone Emperor said, sighing in emotion. From what I know, there are at least 5 rank 3 king tiers. 5. Ling Han's expression suddenly became serious. Being a rank 3 king tier at the heavenly body tier. What did this signify? It signified that they had definitely reached the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. There's Gu Daoyi and also Empress Luan Xing here, the North Emperor said as he counted on his fingers. In addition to them, there's also Zi Chunfeng, Long Xiangyue, and Second in the World. Second in the World? Ling Han couldn't help but interrupt the North Emperor. How did someone possess a name such as this? You might not know, but there's legitimately a clan called the World. According to the legends, a great elite had once appeared in this clan. This elite so powerful that he could do anything as he pleased. It was also at that time that he changed their surname to the World. Second in the World wasn't named Second before, but because of his astonishing cultivation talent that was showing signs of equaling his great ancestor, his name was changed to Second. The significance of this is that his ancestor is first, while he follows directly after as second, the Stone Emperor explained. This, how arrogant, how confident. Ling Han couldn't help but feel excited. This would definitely be a lot of fun. At the very least, he wouldn't need to worry about not having opponents. Brother Ling, if we don't reach the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier, we won't even possess the right to challenge these people. We'll only be able to advance to the Eternal River tier and wait for them to be dragged back to the same starting line as us. However, since they've reached an extra pinnacle level, they'll still possess a noticeable advantage even if we all advance to the same cultivation level. The Stone Emperor and the North Emperor both shook their heads as they said this. They had both reached 2 pinnacle levels, but just how difficult was it to reach the 3rd pinnacle level? After all, most of the current saints were only rank 2 king tiers as well. This was already incredibly impressive. However, who told them to live the golden age of cultivation? During this age, rank 2 king tiers would be nothing to be impressed about. After all, 5 rank 3 king tiers had already emerged. Moreover, these were only the ones that the Stone Emperor knew about. In other words, there were at least 5 rank 3 king tiers. Even though they were the son and disciple of saints, it was still impossible for them to gather all of the information on the king tiers of the hundreds of nearby galaxies. Oh, that's right. Brother Ling, do you know why we arrived slightly earlier? The North Emperor suddenly asked. Isn't it to prepare? Ling Han asked in reply. No, the Stone Emperor answered with a shake of his head. He paused for a moment before continuing. Before the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy starts recruiting, there's another great opportunity that lies before it. In other words, the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy only starts recruiting after the battle for this great opportunity is over, the North Emperor added. Ling Han's interest was immediately piqued, and he asked, what's this great opportunity all about? There's a place called the Sunken Abyss Valley on this wood-figure planet, the Stone Emperor explained. During normal times, this valley is as ordinary as can be. It produces neither godly medicines nor any godly metals. However, every once in a while, this valley will undergo some mystical transformation. The North Emperor took over, saying, at that time, the rocks inside the valley will all fly upward when trodden upon by a living being. Through battling and snatching the rocks of others, one can continue to rise higher and higher. Only when one person reaches the peak of the valley does the competition finally come to an end. At that time, heaven and earth will rain a sweet dew. Those who are higher up will naturally be bathed in more of this dew, thus gaining the ability to temper their body and advance their cultivation. However, the requirement is that one has ascended to a suitable height, the Stone Emperor said. If anyone tells me that you two aren't wearing the same pants, I'll call bulls *T. Ling Han gazed at the two of them with a strange expression. This caused the Stone Emperor and the North Emperor to both feel uncomfortable. What's with your strange gaze? After a moment, Ling Han asked, Isn't this unfair? If one possesses a higher cultivation level, won't it be easier for them to reach a greater height? The North Emperor smiled and replied, Firstly, this competition has its limits. Those who are at the Eternal River tier are forbidden from participating. In any case, the floating rocks can't carry their weight. This is also why only those at the Heavenly Body tier come to apply for the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Even if one is capable of advancing to the Eternal River tier, they'll forcefully suppress their cultivation from reaching this level. This is for no other reason than the great opportunity at the Sunken Abyss Valley. Secondly, as long as you step onto a floating rock, your cultivation level will be suppressed to the early stage of the low extreme of the Heavenly Body tier. The Stone Emperor continued, his cooperation with the North Emperor incredibly smooth. In other words, this is genuinely a battle between cultivators at the same cultivation level. Thirdly, even if you possess a freakish physique as you do, this will be largely useless in the valley. This is because your opponents can target the floating rocks beneath your feet. Once your floating rock is destroyed, your only choice is to fall to the ground and start over again. The Rain Emperor laughed heartily and said, Brilliant! This sounds like an amazing idea. When does it begin? Soon. It should begin within these few months, the North Emperor replied. However, even though everyone's cultivation level is suppressed to the low extreme of the Heavenly Body tier, those who have reached a pinnacle level will still possess some advantage, the Stone Emperor said with a solemn expression. Rank 3 King tiers will possess the largest advantage, with at least 1 star of extra power compared to everyone else. Gu Daoyi, Empress Luanxing, Zi Qinfeng, Long Xiangyue, and second in the world will definitely be the most powerful competitors this time, the North Emperor said. So, my proposal is that we can team up to defeat these individuals first. Is that allowed? Ling Han asked in surprise. Why not? The Stone Emperor asked in reply. You were just saying how fair this competition was, yet in the blink of an eye, you're proposing that we team up? How is that fair? Can 5 or 6 people reach the peak in unison? Ling Han asked. No, the North Emperor replied with a shake of his head. However, the competition in the Sunken Abyss Valley is divided up into 2 stages. During the first stage, teaming up is allowed. However, after reaching a certain height, teaming up isn't allowed any longer. Moreover, only those who reach this cutoff height will be able to receive the blessings of heaven and earth. Right now, there's only Brother Ling and Brother Rain Emperor here. We plan to recruit a few more people to join our team. We want a team of 12, to be precise, the Rain Emperor said. Chapter 1442, Gathering of King Tears. Chapter 1442, Gathering of King Tears. Ling Han waved his hand and said, I still have some companions here. We can fill up an extra 8 spots. 8! The Stone Emperor exclaimed in slight astonishment. They couldn't fill their team with inferior cultivators. At the very least, these had to be rank 2 King tiers. Ling Han nodded and said, Yes, 8. Brother Ling, not to offend you, but are you sure that apart from you and the Rain Emperor these other people won't be a burden? The North Emperor asked with a serious expression. I'm sure. Ling Han replied with a nod. Regardless of whether it was his 2 disciples or Su Ran, which of them wasn't a rank 2 King tier? In fact, Empress Luanxing was more so a rank 3 King tier. As for the notionless saint, well, he was a saint. If he unleashed his aura, that would be enough to petrify a good portion of people. Seizing this opportunity to attack, they would definitely be able to achieve brilliant results. Only the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was slightly weaker. However, As a rank 1 king tier, she wouldn't be too much of a burden. All right, the Stone Emperor said with a nod. Then we'll go and search for 2 more team members. No problem, Ling Han said with a nod. In fact, he could also introduce 2 more team members. For example, Yu Ying and Yang Lin, king tiers from the Long Light Galaxy. At that time, he had also developed a good relationship with them. However, this was the Stone Emperor and North Emperor's suggestion, after all, so it would be rude for him to make all the decisions. When will the Sunken Abyss Valley open? The Rain Emperor asked. It won't be too long. Apparently, the rock faces of the Sunken Abyss Valley are already starting to glow. When this glow becomes as bright as the sun, that will be the moment when the valley opens, the North Emperor replied. Then we'll patiently wait for you too, Ling Han said with a smile. The Stone Emperor and North Emperor took their leave. They had to find the remaining 2 team members as soon as possible. After they left, Ling Han specially traveled to the Sunken Abyss Valley. Sure enough, just as the Stone Emperor and North Emperor had said, there was nothing special about this valley. There were rocks everywhere, and there wasn't any plant, beast, or insect in view. This was a completely desolate and lifeless valley. Now, however, the rock faces of the valley were glowing, just that this glow wasn't very bright. In fact, this glow could barely be seen in the morning. Only when night fell would this soft glow become obvious. However, this changed extremely quickly, with the glow becoming visible in the morning after just 7 days' time. At this rate, it was safe to assume that this glow would become as bright as the sun in another 10 days' time. Ling Han returned to his residence. After a few days, he saw the Stone Emperor and North Emperor return, another 2 men behind them. These men possessed mighty auras, and their demeanor was as if they were the center of the universe. One couldn't help but cast their gaze over. However, these 2 men were truly haughty, this haughtiness not only in appearance, but also from the depths of their very being. Here, let me introduce them, the North Emperor said with a smile. This here is Nye Tianqing, Brother Nye. He's the youngest out of the Flying Rain Saint's 18 disciples. However, his talent is the most outstanding. Nye Tianqing smiled, this smile appearing relatively amicable. However, the arrogance and haughtiness that radiated from him could be sensed from a good 10 kilometers away. This here is Shan Jingyi, Brother Shan, the North Emperor said as he pointed at the other man. Brother Shan is a disciple of the 6 Mountain Saint. Shan Jingyi also nodded at Ling Han, his expression still as haughty as could be. These 2 king tiers were truly full of themselves. Where are the others? Shan Jingyi asked. Didn't you say that there are already 12 members? There was a look of impatience on his face. Of course he was displeased. Shouldn't these people have finished preparing long ago? Once they arrived, it should have been time for them to all set off. So, why was Ling Han the only one here? Where were the others? He actually had to wait for these remaining people? Humph! How arrogant! Brother Ling, we've filled up all 12 spots of our team now, and the opening of the Sunken Abyss Valley is also imminent. So, gather the others, and we'll immediately set off, the North Emperor said with a smile. Understood, Ling Han said with a nod. Glancing at Nye Tianqing and Shan Jingyi, he had a feeling that these 2 individuals were far too haughty. He was sure that their haughtiness would eventually become poisonous tumor to their team. In fact, after learning of the Sunken Abyss Valley's existence, the Rain Emperor and the others hadn't gone out to challenge any other king tiers. Thus, the 7 of them arrived in the guest hall in no time after receiving news of the others' arrival. Upon seeing Empress Luan Xing, Nye Tianqing and Shan Jingyi both exclaimed in surprise and adoration. Although they couldn't see her features, just her figure and aura alone were enough to enchant them and tug at their heartstrings. This was definitely a breathtaking beauty. Their haughtiness suddenly disappeared, and they both actively stepped forward to introduce themselves. I'm Shan Jingyi. I'm Nye Tianqing. To say nothing of them, even the Stone Emperor and North Emperor were stunned by her beauty. However, as Ling Han's good friends, they naturally couldn't act so brazenly. Thus, they didn't step forward to introduce themselves. Who was Empress Luanxing? In terms of pride, who could compare to her? She completely ignored Nie Tianqing and Shan Jingyi, having eyes only for Ling Han. This caused Nie Tianqing and Shan Jingyi to feel even more displeased with Ling Han. There was a peculiar glimmer in the eyes, and it was a mystery what they were pondering over or planning to do. Let's go. The 12 of them set off for the Sunken Abyss Valley. Ling Han's residence was quite far from the Sunken Abyss Valley, so even though they were king tiers at the heavenly body tier, they would still need to walk for an entire 2 days if they didn't travel at full speed. However, there was no need for them to hurry, as they still had plenty of time until the valley opened. Thus, they only arrived at their destination after walking for 2 days. At this time, the Sunken Abyss Valley was already overflowing with people. This type of rare opportunity would only come about once every several million years, after all. Moreover, this valley would suppress their cultivation level and even allow them to form teams. With these factors, even rank 3 king tiers wouldn't possess an overwhelming advantage. Thus, who wouldn't travel here to test their luck out? If they obtained the great opportunity of this valley, perhaps they would be able to transform their life and destiny. A prodigy might become a king tier, and a king tier might become a king among kings. Gazing around, the valley was already packed full of people. Right now, the entire valley was radiating with a soft glow that was clearly brilliant, yet not piercing to the eyes. This will definitely be an intense and cutthroat competition, everyone exclaimed with emotion. This competition could be viewed as the prelude to the recruitment competition of the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. In fact, the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy would also send people over to observe the competition. This was both to prevent mishaps and to keep an eye out for any outstanding individuals. After all, talent was only an intangible asset, while strength and battle prowess were the true qualities of king tiers. Although not every king tier would participate in this competition, at least 90% of them definitely would. If one hadn't reached or surpassed the heavenly body tier, they would have no option but to sit aside and spectate the competition. This valley would only suppress one's cultivation level, not raise one's cultivation level. As such, if one were at the Sun-Moon tier, they would still remain at the Sun-Moon tier even if they entered the valley. In that case, they would be nothing more than cannon fodder. Ling Han swept his gaze over the sea of cultivators, and after searching for a long time, he finally found the king tiers from the long light galaxy. Right now, all of them were standing together. As mentioned before, when casting one's eyes over the entire universe, those who were from the same galaxy would naturally feel closer to each other. This was especially the case for weaker galaxies like the Long Light Galaxy. This galaxy had only produced a mere 3 king tiers. Afterward, Ling Han also saw Faceless. However, he was located too far away, so Ling Han didn't walk over to say hi to him. Then, he also saw Daoyi. In the entire immortal realm, Ling Han was most likely the first person to have learned of Daoyi's existence. However, he had only heard his voice at the time, and hadn't actually seen him in person. Right now, he was finally able to see him. He wasn't difficult to find. In fact, he was incredibly easy to find as he was like a crane among a bunch of chickens. There was an empty region of at least 30 meters around him, and a circle of people was standing around him, their eyes fervent with excitement. Daoyi wasn't extremely handsome, yet his skin was as smooth as jade and his hair was jet black like ink. His aura was indescribably elegant and ethereal. This was a divine fetus. Chapter 1443, Extreme Troublemaker, Large Black Dog. Chapter 1443, Extreme Troublemaker, Large Black Dog. That truly is a divine fetus nurtured by the 9 deaths heaven art. Empress Luanxing whispered in Ling Han's ear. In fact, she had used her divine sense to transmit this message. Thus, unless there was a saint beside them, no one else could have heard what she had just said. Her hand was gripping Ling Han's wrist, and even with Ling Han's freakish physique, he still felt a slight pain shooting through his arm. This was a sign of just how emotional Empress Luanxing was. As if feeling their gaze, Daoyi also turned around to glance at them. However, his gaze didn't stop on Ling Han. In his eyes, Ling Han naturally wasn't worthy of his attention. Instead, his gaze landed on Empress Luanxing. His eyes narrowed, and a meaningful smile tugged at the corners of his lips. It was evident that he had discovered that Empress Luanxing was also practicing the Nine Deaths Heaven art. Just as he was a delicious meal to Empress Luanxing, perhaps Empress Luanxing was also a delicious meal to him. Perhaps she could help his divine fetus become even more extraordinary. Hurry, stop that dog. This dirty dog is far too uncouth. It's running around and biting people everywhere. A wave of commotion swept through the dense crowd, and it could be seen that a large black dog was currently running over from the distance, a huge group of people behind him. These people wore furious expressions, and it was clear that they were all seething with anger. Ling Han couldn't help but grimace. That was none other than the large black dog from the Medicine King's cave. Right now, it wasn't as large as a mountain, but instead the size of an ordinary dog. Its fur was ink black and shiny like oil. However, this dog was truly a huge troublemaker, attracting the anger of so many people right upon arriving. In fact, his halo of trouble was even more intense than Ling Han's. The large black dog was extremely provocative as he ran, shouting, "Little **TS, why are you running so slow? How about Grandpa Dog takes a handicap of 2 legs?" As he said this, he indeed stood up, running on his 2 hind legs. Pooh! Many people instantly spluttered with laughter. However, those chasing him were incensed even further. This was far too detestable. Little **TS, you still haven't caught up? So be it. Grandpa Dog will walk upside down now. How does that sound? The large black dog leaned on his front paws as if doing a handstand. However, his speed was still incredibly fast. His provocations were definitely extremely effective. He was running away using just his front paws, yet he was still faster than all of the people pursuing him. He was truly smacking them across the face, again and again. Fucking C***T dog. We definitely have to capture and cut him into 10,000 pieces. I've never seen such a shameless demonic dog before. He's so bloody shameless. Die! The pursuing people were burning with rage, and it was as if flames were spitting out from their eyes. The large black dog was not only extremely quick, but also incredibly agile. He was like a fish in water as he slithered through the dense crowd of cultivators. Meanwhile, those pursuing him came across barrier after barrier, causing them to fall further and further behind the large black dog. Huh? Isn't this little Han? Come, call me Grandpa. The large black dog involuntarily stopped upon seeing Ling Han, waving his paw in greeting. However, he was in a handstand position right now, so this greeting was truly as peculiar as could be. Ling Han was rendered speechless. This large black dog was just as debauched as always. He was always seeking to take advantage of others. Huh, this woman seems all right. She's fairly beautiful. Why don't you become my maid? The large black dog stared at Empress Luanxing, attracted by her charm even though he was a dog. Drool started to roll down from his mouth. How audacious! Nie Tianqing immediately roared. He was intent on making a good impression before Empress Luanxing, so he immediately launched a strike at the large black dog. Numerous heavenly bodies instantly materialized in the air. These weren't the heavenly bodies from his dantian, but rather heavenly bodies that had been formed from his cultivation technique. The surrounding space was filled with heavenly bodies. What are shouting about, ugly wretch? See how Grandpa Dog disposes of you. The large black dog immediately leaped forward, surprisingly breaking through Nie Tianqing's attack. He then ruthlessly bit down on Nie Tianqing's wrist. Ow wow! Nie Tianqing instantly howled in agony. Back then, even Ling Han had felt some slight pain after being bitten by the large black dog. However, could Nie Tianqing's physique compare to Ling Han's? Thus, this bite instantly drew blood. Moreover, Nie Tianqing couldn't shake the large black dog off no matter what he did. Let go! Let go! Nie Tianqing was almost on the verge of tears. This large black dog was far too uncouth. It was actually biting people. Of the elites in the world, who ever fought like this? There was a loud crack as Nie Tianqing's arm was brutally bitten off. Carrying this broken arm in his mouth, the large black dog continued to run away. This was because the people chasing him had already arrived before Ling Han. Detestable dog, return my arm. Nie Tianqing also started to chase after the large black dog. Although he could regrow his arm, doing so would definitely consume a portion of his life force. Thus, he naturally wanted to snatch his severed arm back. That way, attaching his severed limb would consume much less of his life force. Come, chase Grandpa Dog. The large black dog stood up on his hind legs again, running as quick as the wind. Don't say that Grandpa Dog is scolding you people, but you people truly are a group of trash. Detestable dog. See asterisk and T-Dog. The group of people was beside themselves with rage as they continued to chase after the large black dog. Shan Jingyi couldn't help but celebrate his luck. Thankfully, he had been a split second slower than Nie Tianqing. Otherwise, the person with the broken arm might have been him. Although he was conceited, he didn't think that he was stronger than Nie Tianqing. Thus, there was naturally a lingering fear in his mind. Anyhow, perhaps this large black dog wasn't truly as powerful as he seemed. However, he was indeed mysterious, and it seemed as if origin power couldn't do much to stop his advance. Add to that his terrifying teeth, and this large black dog truly made for a difficult opponent. Moreover, he was also incredibly quick, immediately running away whenever he was done with provoking someone. This gave his victims absolutely no chance of exacting revenge. Nie Tianqing had truly suffered a great misfortune. With the large black dog causing trouble everywhere, the originally serious atmosphere instantly descended into chaos. The cultivators all laughed heartily as they watched the large black dog running around and causing trouble everywhere. However, those who became his victim would all immediately seethe with rage. Grandpa Dog is certain to reach the pinnacle of this world. I'm recruiting servants now, and this is a rare chance for you to apply. If you miss this opportunity, you might never see it again. The large black dog continued to shout as he ran. It was a mystery where he had thrown Nie Tianqing's broken arm. You, and you. Grandpa Dog will give you people an opportunity, the large black dog said as he continuously pointed at random people. Those who were pointed at naturally became enraged. Most of the people here were king tiers, yet this dog was actually asking them to become his slaves? How could they accept this? The dignity of king tiers couldn't be violated. Some people were easygoing, and they simply shrugged this off with a smile, acting as if nothing had happened. However, many more people were infuriated, joining the group of people chasing the large black dog. This large black dog was truly born to be a troublemaker. If one were to ask who was the most famous at this moment, the answer would definitely be the large black dog. His renown had instantly surged past that of Gu Daoyi and Empress Luanxing. However, his renown was for his detestable nature, and he was much like a street mouse, hated and cursed by everyone. Sigh, Grandpa Dog is far too brilliant. My brilliance is even attracting the jealousy of others. There was a narcissistic look on the large black dog's face. Detestable dog, fight us if you dare. The pack of chasing people was about to go crazy with rage. The large black dog waved a paw and said, Grandpa Dog doesn't want to bully you people. As he said this, he continued to run away, not even stopping for an instant. After chasing him for half a day, not even a single person had managed to catch up to him. The large black dog was genuinely too quick. Moreover, the path that he had taken was also quirky and unpredictable. It was no wonder that he dared to provoke so many people. If one wanted to become the enemy of the people, they would first need to master the training of their legs. 3 days passed, and the large black dog was still running around, as provocative as always. So far, he had already offended almost 1/10 of the people present at the valley. There was now a vast group of people chasing after him. Right at this moment, a column of light suddenly rose from the valley. At the same time, a humongous golden boulder also soared into the sky, instantly reaching a height of 300 meters above the valley. It then stopped and hovered in place, radiating with a boundless divine light as it did so. The Sunken Abyss Valley has opened. Chapter 1444, Pseudo-Saint Tool. Chapter 1444, Pseudo-Saint Tool. Following the opening of the Sunken Abyss Valley, everyone instantly lost interest in battling the detestable large black dog. They could kill this detestable dog later, but the great opportunity presented by the Sunken Abyss Valley wouldn't appear again. If they missed this opportunity, there would be no next time. Everyone surged toward the valley. When the valley had been glowing before, there had been a mystical barrier preventing them from entering. Right now, the first person had already stepped onto a piece of rock, which instantly rose into the air. However, it only rose 6 meters into the air, not ascending any further. Then, the second and third person arrived, both of them stepping onto rocks that rose into the air. Intense battles immediately broke out, and it wasn't long before the floating rocks of some cultivators were shattered. These shattered rocks didn't fall to the ground, but were instead absorbed by the floating rocks beneath the victor's feet. These floating rocks would then grow larger, thereby allowing them to ascend higher into the air. However, there was also a limitation. That was, each piece of floating rock would only have a movement range of 6 meters in the up and down direction. When these floating rocks grew larger, they would merely carry the cultivator to a greater height. However, the range of its movement wouldn't increase at all. As a result, the regions of battle became confined into the shape of a pyramid. The lower one was, the more intense the battles would be. Meanwhile, the higher one was, the fewer people there would be, meaning that it was also much more difficult to rise any higher. "Hurry, we need to get a move on too," Shanjingi said. Nie Tiancheng had already returned, though his expression was livid and dark. He hadn't managed to find his broken arm, so he was left with no option but to consume his life force to grow a new one. This naturally caused great harm to his life force. However, if he were able to find some natural treasures, perhaps he could still regain this lost life force. Meanwhile, there was a look of toxic resentment in his eyes as he gazed at Ling Han. This was because he had seen Ling Han being greeted by the large black dog, and since he had been unable to capture the large black dog, he naturally heaped all of his anger and resentment onto Ling Han. This was truly undeserved hate. Ling Han took note of this, but he didn't say anything. If Nie Tiancheng truly dared to target him, he would definitely strike back and suppress him. They were only temporary allies, after all, and this alliance would naturally fall apart once they reached the cutoff height. Thus, Ling Han didn't have any intention of helping Nie Tiancheng or Shanjingi achieve good results. The only reason he hadn't become immediately hostile was to give the North Emperor and Stone Emperor face. After all, it was them who had informed him about the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy and the Sunken Abyss Valley. Of course, both were major events, and Ling Han would have eventually found out about them even if they hadn't informed him. The team of 12 entered the valley. There were floating rocks everywhere, and it was as if they could never be used up. Thus, each of the 12 king tiers quickly found a floating rock to step onto. They all rose to a height of 6 meters, where they then began to search for opponents. "Celestial Maiden, I'll definitely protect you," Shanjingi said to Empress Luanxing. "I will too," Nie Tiancheng hurriedly said. Looks of displeasure instantly spread across the North Emperor's and Stone Emperor's face. Although Empress Luanxing hadn't introduced herself, anyone with eyes would have realized that she was in a relationship with Ling Han. They were all in an alliance right now, so was it really a good idea to flirt with the partner of a fellow ally? This was incredibly rude. However, Shanjingi and Nie Tiancheng didn't pay any heed to this, continuing to fawn over Empress Luanxing. It was as if Ling Han didn't exist in their eyes. Moreover, it was clear that they were purposefully ignoring their relationship and trying to steal Empress Luanxing from him. In their eyes, Ling Han was completely unworthy of a woman as beautiful and charming as Empress Luanxing. Only supreme prodigies like them could be worthy of her. However, if they had spent the time to gather some information, perhaps their confidence wouldn't be as full as it was now. This was because Ling Han was a rank 2 king tier. In other words, he was no weaker than them. Meanwhile, Empress Luanxing was even more terrifying, being publicly acknowledged as one of the most powerful king tiers. However, how could they have gone out to gather information? Firstly, they were extremely conceited individuals who looked down on all other prodigies and king tiers. Secondly, they had been completely enchanted by the Empress figure and charm. Ling Han smiled faintly and prevented Empress Luan Xing from attacking them. He used his divine sense to transmit a message, saying, "We'll kick them down when we reach the peak." "Sure," Empress Luan Xing replied, an intoxicating smile on her face. However, it was a pity that no one could see this smile. With her personality, she would immediately kill any person that she detested. However, since Ling Han had other plans, it wouldn't hurt to wait for a while longer. Her gentleness and understanding were only reserved for one person, Ling Han. There was already an undercurrent of animosity sweeping through the team of 12. However, this animosity still had yet to rise to the surface and explode. They started to attack the other teams. Since the rules permitted it, most of the cultivators here had chosen to form teams. After all, those who were alone would obviously be at a very huge disadvantage. Thus, there were teams of 3, teams of 7, and other teams of all shapes and sizes. Those teams that had less than 12 members most likely simply hadn't managed to recruit enough members. After all, even super-large galaxies could only produce 10 or so king tiers. Meanwhile, large galaxies could only produce 7 to 8, while small galaxies could only produce 3 to 4. If the king tiers weren't familiar with each other, who dared to entrust their back to strangers? Teams like the one that Ling Han was in were relatively rare. Generally speaking, cultivators wouldn't trust those from foreign galaxies so easily. The first team that they came across was a team of 3. Although there were few people, their strength wasn't weak. After all, everyone's cultivation level had already been suppressed to the early stage of the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. As such, even the gap between rank 3 king tiers and rank 1 king tiers wasn't very large. Nie Tiancheng had been humiliated before, so he naturally wanted to regain his face now. Thus, he was the first person to charge over. He summoned a peach branch that had 7 flowers on it, each of them exuding a faint and refreshing fragrance. Boom! Whipping this peach branch, it was as if a towering tree had instantly materialized into the world, suppressing the lands and holding up the heavens. Ling Han couldn't help but feel astonished. What god tool is this? It seems fairly impressive. "This is the rumored celestial branch," the North Emperor exclaimed. He turned around to explain this to the others, saying, "According to the legends, during a transformative period of the skies, a celestial tree once appeared in the void. It swept through the universe, possessing a profound might that prevented anyone from nearing it. Unfortunately, perhaps it had received significant damage when traveling through the void, and this caused it to shrivel and die very quickly. However, it still bore a single fruit that was obtained by the Flying Rain Saint. After planting this fruit and using all kinds of divine soil to nurture it, it finally sprouted and grew after 900 million years. This is a celestial peach tree, and it only produces 2 fruits every 100 million years. To cultivators, these fruits are profound great herbs that can compare to the rarest of saint fruits. However, this is only a child tree. The mother tree would have most likely produced even better fruits. In any case, this is the origin of the celestial tree. My master teamed up with the Flying Rain Saint once, trying to determine where the mother tree had come from. However, it was a shame that they ended up vomiting blood even though they had used heaven-defying techniques. They weren't able to discover a shred of new information. Anyhow, the branch that Brother Nye is holding has come from none other than the child tree. It can be viewed as a saint tool, something that can be refined into a pseudo-saint tool. Pseudo-Saint Tool. No wonder it's so impressive. It was able to release a heaven-suppressing aura immediately upon being summoned. Ling Han and his companions exchanged a glance, all of them reaching a speculation that was probably close to the truth. The mother tree had come from the celestial realm. This was almost certain, as only the celestial realm was capable of nurturing great herbs that were above the immortal level. A haughty smile appeared on Nye Tiancheng's face. This should have been an important secret, but he wanted to show off and also impress Empress Luanxing. Thus, he allowed the North Emperor to explain the secret of his Pseudo-Saint Tool. He roared loudly as he whipped the peach branch toward his three opponents. Countless flowers instantly blossomed in the air, each of them lush and brimming with vitality. It was almost impossible to determine whether these flowers were real or illusory. Explode! Nie Tianqing shouted. Pa, 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 pa. The peach flowers instantly exploded, their devastating power causing the group of three to howl in agony. They all fell from their floating rocks. At the same time, these floating rocks exploded into pieces, these shattered pieces being absorbed by the floating rocks beneath Ling Han's and the others' feet. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.